Here it is, the 23rd eve of the most important sim of the year, Waiver Sim Podcast, also known as the Pre-Sim Podcast, or the Pre-Season Podcast. Well, I guess technically they're all pre-sims because there's sims that come after them.
All right.
So, podcast number 23, I am Ha Chao with another fantastic, tight intro, and of course, we have our usual panel, plus special guest Thug. So you guys can introduce yourselves, even though everybody knows who you are.
Nah, I don't want to do that.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for your cooperation on that. Anyone who's listened to a preseason podcast before, they know the format. We rotate through the teams. If we disagree with the other people's opinions, like I'm going to do with everyone's, we chime in after they're done rambling about that team. We're going to start with me on my favorite team, the Boston Celtics, managed by I should have started Doyle. And that's his official name now from now on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I actually kind of like this team this year. I think picking up Merriman was an underrated move. He's got 4 starters that I like at least, so that's more than most years when I talk about Boston. But I definitely think his other wings are, well, other than Vince Stauffer, who I have a secret man crush on.
It's not a secret. It's not a secret, Haj. We all know that.
My extremely open man crush on him. I don't think he should be a starter, Vince Stauffer. But I think if you added a good small forward or a good shooting guard to this team, they'd be a tricky team to deal with. I don't know if they'd make the playoffs, but even Mike Butler's not too bad as a backup, even though his rebounding is a little upsetting. I think this team could surprise some people this year compared to some recent Celtics teams.
I would agree because Droppy is actually adding talent to his team. He's not just adding a bunch of young players and busts. He's actually it started off with that Allen West trade he made last year. That was just a great move. I don't know what MSD was thinking there, but Droppy took advantage of that, and the Merriman trade was just like that. It was he was adding a quality starter, and I feel like if Machado takes another leap this year, like he has the past couple seasons, then Boston very well could compete for a playoff spot. I think they are. It depends if Vince Stafford if he can somehow go back to old school Vince Stafford and average 20 points a game, then who knows what could happen. But I don't know. I think this team their peak is probably a 8 seed, first round exit, but still that's a lot better than what they've done recently.
I guess I kind of agree, but at the same time, I don't. Then
you don't agree.
Well, I'm confused as who the 4th starter that Hodge likes is. I see Mealy, Merriman, Mercado, and then
Allen West.
Oh yeah,
Allen West.
All right. All right, fine, I'll give you that. They have 4 capable starters, but after that, even then, Mealy's good, but he's not a good rebounder, and to be fair, Merriman hasn't rebounded well in 3 seasons, so I think they're going to have a lot of rebounding issues. They've got a lot of defensive issues between West and Stauffer, and the verdict's still out on Mercado and whether or not he's a really good defender or not. They've got some serious bench issues. I don't know who's backing up anywhere. McCreary with his D-plus handling and not really contributing anything noteworthy, or Goffredo Lombardi, or Mike Butler. I don't see anyone on this bench that's worth any damn whatsoever. I don't see an 8 seed even remotely possible for this Boston team right now, but if you keep Mealy and West always surprises me that he's only 25. I always get surprised by his age, even though I do this every season. But, they have a nice young core, and I think if Droppy keeps building it up the way he's built it up so far, I think they'll be contenders in a few seasons, as long as he doesn't give up and do his usual trade everyone, let's figure it out later thing.
Yeah, at the very least, this is the first season in a long time that you can kind of tell who the bench guys are and who the starters are.
Right.
Team.
Yeah, that makes it a lot easier to talk about them.
Looking at this Celtics team is it's kind of like you just walk past the landfill season after season, and this one year, you can start to see maybe some semblance of some talent growing there, but it's still such an ugly ass team just in general. I like the 3 or 4 guys everyone's mentioned, but it's just there's no real identity here as far as I can tell, and the bench is just god awful. I think 8 seed would be just a huge pleasant surprise for Droppy. And I think it's possible, but again, it's just, I mean, I hope he keeps Machado this year.
I'm kind of projecting ahead of time because I think Machado might be like one of the best point guards in the league within a year or two, and maybe even this year. So I'm thinking if he does that, then maybe Boston gets the 8th seed at best. But I don't know.
And it's possible. He got 10 assists last year. I don't know how he got 10 assists last year. I didn't know the rest of the team could combine and put together 30 points last year.
I think Allen West and Mealy can score a little bit at least.
Yeah, a lot of pick and rolls to Mealy probably.
Yeah.
So there you go.
It's on to me and talking about my click.
Miami. Yes, how fitting.
I'm fairly convinced that Seth truly believes in his heart at this point that he can just put a full team together of centers and power forwards and win with it. I mean, I think that's the direction that we're heading here in Miami, and it's intriguing to me, but scary at the same time. He's got Royce Lopez and Joe Trammell, and I guess Joe Trammell's a legitimate shooting guard, even though he's 6'9", 232 with no handling. It's just, this whole team is nothing but centers and power forwards. I mean, you have Keith Koch, Bob Jacobs, Omar Thomas, Sal. I mean, that's going to be pretty much their rotation at some point. Diamond Stone might be in there a little bit, even after his terrible training camp. I don't know if Tim Scott's going to see any time. He did pick up Bernard Kelly, though, which was a move I kind of liked, even though it doesn't really fit in with his scheme, but like I told Seth, you don't want everyone just to be able to shoot inside. I mean, that's not how inside offenses work. So I think this is one of the first seasons. They had Tasio Vega last year, but other than that, I mean, this is one of the first seasons I can remember Seth having a solid bench player. So I like that move, and I love Royce Lopez. This team made the playoffs last year, and they brought in Omar Thomas. I see another playoff run for them in the future. I'm just worried that Seth's going to go way too overkill in this whole center and power forward thing, and it's Trammell's going to be gone, and Lopez is going to be gone, and Keith Koch is going to be starting a point guard, and I don't know what's going on in Miami right now. The way it's constructed now, I think they're definitely a playoff team. I think they're probably a lock to make at least a top 6 seed at this point, because it worked out well for them last season, and they've only gotten better this year. So I can't see them missing the playoffs, but I just don't know how effective it is as to the ultimate goal of winning a title and staying competitive for years. But, I mean, I like the way they look right now, I guess.
Yeah, I actually really like the trade he made for Omar because, I mean, like you said, he's running an inside offense, and that's perfect. That's way better suited, obviously, for a guy like Omar Thomas than Tasio Vega, who... And plus, Omar Thomas is younger, so it's like a perfect fit for him. He, like having Keith Koch and Bob Jacobs like starting at center and power forward, like it worked last year. But I mean, Omar Thomas is better starter than Bob Jacobs.
Hold on. You just want to look like a good guy in the trade because you made that trade with Seth. You don't want to look like you ripped him off or anything.
I didn't rip him off. If anything, he ripped me off.
I'm not saying you did, but you just want to make it look like you got the best of it no matter what.
Well, no. I just did the opposite. He got a younger player that fits his system perfectly.
Hey, I like the trade for Seth too. I'm just saying, no matter what happened in that trade, you would have made it look like you got the better of the deal. That's just what you want.
No, then I don't want to fleece somebody a bit better in a deal than in a not.
No, you should have added Richard Kennemar.
Oh, yeah, I knew that was coming.
First round worthy Richard Kennemar, if you ask me. He's gonna be starting this year, so whatever. Anyways, I agree with Tyler. They're definitely a playoff team. I think they're very, very well constructed for their inside offense. Joe Trammell actually looks like he could be like a pretty good scorer this year. I think his outside went up a little bit.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah, it did. Yeah.
And Royce Lopez is really underrated for because he's such a good passer, which is what you really need to make for that sort of an offense.
Right. I think he made a great trade last season when he traded for Royce Lopez. Who was that great GM that gave him Royce Lopez?
Hey, there we go.
Are we just hyping up our own trades now?
I think so. I mean, I think this is a good team. I mean, you guys talked about like the inside offense. I think it's going to work out really well. But I mean, this is one of the best defensive teams. If you look at their starting 5 in the entire league, that's going to just be a huge benefit for this team. I think top 6 seed is definitely within reach. I mean, they're not too old yet. I think Sal went down inside. Is that true?
He might have.
Yeah,
I don't know.
he's B plus now. So I mean, but I don't think it'll matter in the long run. He's got 3 legitimate go-to guys. He's got Royce Lopez to handle and distribute the ball and keep Koch as long as he just stands there in the middle. And I mean, he's one of the shortest guys on their team. And he's playing center, which is kind of funny. But
yeah,
I
think
the
rebounding also will be a big factor. I find because
I think that Miami is one of my sleeper teams in the East. I think they very easily could win the conference. I really believe in this team. I think the trade for Kelly is a lot better than Tyler was letting on, because look at his alternatives if he didn't have Kelly. You'd be playing Manuel Leclerc, James Forrest, and Scott. I mean, that's a huge upgrade for the bench. And I feel like Roach actually might be a decent backup point guard too, now that he's actually going to play him. And Royce is just maybe the most underrated player in the league at this point, because he's like a perfect fit on this team. Perfect, like look at his season last year: 10.2 assists to 1.7 turnovers. That is just an elite point guard ratio. And I think this is one of the better starting fives in the league. And I feel like the Heat. I mean, it wouldn't shock me to see them win the East. They're one of my sleepers to win the East this year. Any arguments there? No.
I mean, I like it.
Yeah, I agree about Kelly too. I think he's a great person to add to their bench. Like, I would even consider playing him point guard and shooting guard, even though Roach is interesting. But I like the defense that Kelly would bring to those spots, even if his handling isn't going to be as good as Roach. But
now moving on to a team that just made a huge trade. And
speaking of hyping up his own trade,
the person that made the trade with is going first here. So Thug, what do you have to say about the Nets?
Right. I mean, I think that was a great trade for Crimson for sure. I mean, I think he needed to dump Page this year. I think he was gonna be mediocre again after the last couple of years. So I really like the direction he went. I like that he traded for Tigran and for Victor Fern, who I still think can be a number 1 guy despite what Milko says.
Never.
Well, he does. I mean, I was talking to Tyler about this earlier. I think he will be a really good bench guy off the bench, and he'll definitely score in bunches, and it might be better with his defense for him to move into a bench role. I mean, I don't know if he's going to continue sticking with Ross Falk, and I've heard rumblings that he might be trying to trade him for a couple of firsts, but I mean, if he does that, then this is a great trade for him. And I think trading Merriman also was a very underrated move. I think he got good value for him, and he got another first out of that, so he's sitting pretty right now with 4 firsts in this year's draft, and hopefully he'll be able to capitalize on it in his rebuild process.
Yeah, it's definitely been his most active offseason, like maybe ever that I've ever seen him. Because usually most years we just say this is the same team that was there last year, but this is like a whole new sort of look for them. I mean, they got rid of Page, like you said, and they added a bunch of expirings in first mostly, but they also added, like you said, from Houston, they picked up a lot of good young guys to help sort of rebuild the team around those players. So.
I just wish that Crimson got over his man crush of Randy Seifert, because Randy Seifert is awful. Sorry. I mean, he's good at stealing, but that's about it. And Crimson loves this guy like he's a second coming. So
he's so good at stealing. But that's the only thing he's good at.
He's only good at stealing. I mean, he led the league in steals last year, but I mean, he's horrible. Look at it, 3.3 turnovers a game.
He turned it over more than he stole.
Yeah. That's not very good, but Thug, he summed it up pretty well. I mean, I don't think I have anything more to add. The Crimson's on the right track to a rebuild. This team was going nowhere. This team needed a rebuild. Page had to go. He got good value, and I mean, that's it basically.
I absolutely agree. And since Crimson does listen to these, as he's pointed out every single time we've posted one of these, I want to make sure we point out how good of a job we think he's doing. He's a beloved member of our community, and we wouldn't want to run this league without you, buddy. So,
yes,
and a pleasure to trade with.
And also, we will not overhype your team because we know you hate that. So.
Oh yeah, your team sucks, but you're on the right track. So there you go.
Speaking of teams that suck, or the opposite of that, the Knicks are the next team. And this is me, and I get to talk about Polo's team. Hooray.
Oh, what a surprise. Would you rig the dice, too?
Loaded dice.
He was going on and on about that guy. I don't know how to say his name. Emilio Ricci in training camp. Like, he had a huge training camp, but, I mean, come on. He's still like a backup, and this team is... I think Polo is so ready to make a huge trade. He's been ready since since he lost in the first round last year. But he is not. He's just not done it. Like he's overvaluing his own guys. Like he never did that in the past. He never overvalued his own guys. But Lauren Mize, he wouldn't include in a Page trade at one point.
Wow.
He wouldn't. He wouldn't. That was like a deal breaker. Mize was a deal breaker in a Page trade at one point. Like Dewey Skinner had a horrible training camp. Shang Lao, obviously he overvalued last year and he's horrible now. Skalski, like he offered him I think he offered him to me at one point. That's how many GMs he offered him to. And then like Larry Austin's on this team. I haven't finished as a 1 seed again, but I'm not sold on the direction they're taking. I mean, they're still very talented. They might win 60 games, but I feel like this core might not be good enough to win a title. Like the playoff failures have not been good to Polo, and I think Polo's ready to make a huge move, but he doesn't know what to do. And his team's kind of in limbo right now. I'm not sure what he's going to do, but I don't know. They're going to finish in the top of the East, but I would pick a lot of other teams to win the East before them in the playoffs.
For me, I find the problem is that their center position is like. I mean, I like Sean Wade. I think Sean Wade's a good starter, and
yes, he is.
He's very, very good for an outside offense because he seems to rebound really well. But they have like no real anchor at center on defense, and when it gets to the playoffs, it seems like I don't know. It's confusing because in the regular season, they're very good on defense, and last year they led the league in opposing every percentage that you can name. But I think that's definitely the big issue. Is they could use more of an anchor. I don't think Skalski or Skiladinsky or whatever his name is a very good Monica Lewinsky. I don't think he's a very good defensive center. I think he might. Well, I don't know. He probably can't play power forward, but yeah, I think if they had like more of an anchor guy up there, it would probably help. And but yeah, I mean their playoff losses sort of it confuses me because they play so good, but I don't know. I don't really get it.
To be fair, they faced some very good 8 seeds. Like the Bulls won the East last year, and the year before that, the Raptors had Grundy and Reynolds hurt all year. So
yeah, I guess
very tough 8 seeds.
That's true. I gotta say about the Knicks is that it's weird to see the same team from Polo like season after season at this point. I mean. Normally he changes up, a little bit, but like Mofo said, it seems like he really wants to get a deal done and really wants to make this big splash, but he can't figure out what he wants to do with it, and he's not offering enough to make a huge splash. I mean,
I think that's the issue. He wants to make sure he gets the best out of every single trade and every little bit of it. He wants to make sure he wins, and you just can't do trades like that when you're the one who really needs to make a splash.
Right. Like, I mean, I wouldn't. Like, I really needed a shooting guard small forward. I wouldn't have offered, like a second-round pick to Thug for, I don't even know who was on his team. Let's say someone good right now. But, like, you just wouldn't do it. Like, if you're the one desperate for something, you can't just sit there and offer out garbage and hope someone's just going to be dumb enough to take it. Like, I don't know. I don't like the way he's handling his business right now. I also don't like that JB is not muting his microphone.
Yeah. I think he's watching some Saturday morning cartoons or something. JB, turn your goddamn microphone off.
Come on, JB.
Before I ride down the floor and slap you silly.
Sounds like some...
Is that Devonta, maybe? Who is that?
Actually, I think it is Devontae. Devontae, turn your microphone off before I slap you silly also.
Damn it, Devonta.
Kick him out. Can you kick him out?
You're the only black representative in this podcast. You gotta hold yourself to a higher standard.
I won't accept sorry for an answer.
If Rocco was here, we wouldn't have this bullshit.
He'd just say we were racist for yelling at
Anyway, let's get back on track here. Who's talking there? I'm completely lost.
I don't know.
The Knicks, they really want to make a trade, but I agree with what everybody said. I find maybe he's overvaluing his guys, or it's like he sort of wants to add a piece, but it's like it's hard he seems to not want to move anybody to get that.
You guys all agree that this team as constructed is still the favorite in the East to get that 1 seed, right?
I'd say they're top 3 for sure, but
yeah. I think they might have a little bit of a dip this year because I don't know how long they can sort of gimmick their way with this big man situation that they've got on there.
I guess Skalski going down in training camp is a huge step back too.
Plus it hurts his value a lot. in trades.
Yeah, he
I've
might
just
not.
never liked Anthony. I've never liked Anthony Jones at small forward. I think it's way too short. to
Yeah,
play small
I don't
forward.
like that either. It's a good point. 'Cause he doesn't rebound enough.
Yeah.
Why
Yeah,
isn't
that
Paulino at small forward and Jones at shooting guard?
Because I think Paulino goes down at defense.
Well, big fucking whoop. I don't.
Yeah, but I mean,
That's exactly why, because it's a big fucking whoop. That's what.
guess-
Speaking of trades, actually,
Yes.
that brings us on to our next team, which actually will be starting Eugene Doyle, so that should mean I love them instantly. But it's Orlando, obviously, and they've obviously had a very active offseason. MSC's pretty much blown up with almost all the pieces he had last year.
There's probably more to come, so stay tuned for that.
There's more explosions and fireworks. I mean, I'm sure Josh Grundy's days there are numbered. I wouldn't be surprised if he moves Jay Wire, but I don't know. I don't really like these trades. I mean, if you look at his draft picks he's collected now, they're nothing really too special. I mean, he's kept his own pick, which is good because his team's probably not going to be. Well, I guess they might be all right, but I don't really know what his plan is. I mean, it seems like he wants to get younger guys, but then he's like he adds Josh Grundy, he's still 28, I guess, but. I mean, I don't know. I don't really know what exactly MSC's plan is right now.
I was just dumbfounded. He doesn't know what to say.
I'm kerfunkled or whatever word you want to make up.
Yeah, I feel like that Pierre trade he did just because he wanted to make a move, and I think he got good value for Pierre. But in terms of, he really moved sideways with that trade. I think. I mean, Grundy and Wire, they're definitely very good players, but maybe he felt it was easier to trade those guys than it would be to trade Pierre.
Yeah, because they're younger, I guess.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good line of thinking. Probably that's probably what he thought. He's probably right too. Grundy will probably be easier to trade.
But I mean, I guess for this year, I mean, I think they'll still be, a pretty good team. They still have, you have Wire, Doyle, Miracle, and Grundy. I mean, that's four good starters. I don't know who they'd start at shooting guard. Obviously, I guess they're probably going to start McKinley, Cole, or somebody.
He said he's going to start Overlock.
Woohoo!
Oh well, see, I trade my backups and they start everywhere. That's how fair my trades are.
Or maybe you just trade too much.
Maybe that's certainly a possibility. I don't really know what to say about this team. It's kind of I can't really comprehend what MSC's plan is with the team.
MSC is broke Hodge.
I'll just say I really like Eugene Doyle. I think he's gone up, I think, in every training camp so far. He went up in inside this year, so I think he's going to be a really good player. And probably by this year, he's actually going to probably average a double-double with an increase in inside. I think he's just going to keep getting better from here. So he's the guy to build around.
Yeah, that I'll agree with.
Sure.
I will not. I do not like Eugene Doyle.
Why not? What's wrong with him?
I mean, nothing's wrong with him. I mean, you're still evaluating him based on the fact he went from 5 points a game to 7 points a game last year.
He went up in inside, I'm saying, though. Going from B- to B is a pretty decent climb for a big man.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, if it's a double-double, it'd be like 12 and 10. It's just nothing spectacular.
He's a really good rebounder. 9.2 and 27.2 last year is really good.
That's true.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I think guys that get 10, 12, it's that's a lot of rebounds to get. And even if he's not an amazing scorer, but if you put him next to a guy like Jay Wire, who can score, their skills complement each other.
Yeah, they do complement each other well. That's a good point. Tyler, do you have anything to add before we move on?
No.
It's tough to talk about them because we don't know what's going to happen.
Well, yeah, I don't want to waste my time talking about this when, they're going to look completely different in a few days anyways. If they start Overlock, they're going to be in a lot of trouble. I like Lewis Miracle. I think he had a good TC. Doyle's all right. I'm in love with Jay Wire, and Grundy's probably one of the best point guards, top 3 point guards in the league right now. So that's about what I have. You throw it all together, and you have probably a 7 seed. So there you go.
Well, all right. And Tyler, you can just keep on talking because we're moving on to the Sixers, and you are up.
That's true. All right, we got the Sixers, who are in Philadelphia. It's sunny there, from what I've heard.
Yes.
And this is a team that's, starting Dirk Van Gilder, so automatically I hate them.
What? Did you see the training camp he had? He went from BB scoring to B plus A-.
Yeah, have you seen the career that he's had? So,
I don't. You see the playoffs he had last year?
I don't know. Anyways,
with the Nets too, he had a good playoffs like 10 years ago or so.
Right, yeah, when he was like 12. Okay, but all right, so this we've got Joe Pickens, Benjamin Gonzalez, and Perry Zimmerman. Probably one of the best front courts in EBL. I mean, you can't argue any other way about it. I mean, Pickens really stepped his game up last season. Because it seemed like his sophomore season, he hit that bit of a slump. He went through a shooting spell. His field goal percentage was down, and last year he really picked it. Stayed on course, I guess, with his junior season, if we're gonna refer to them all from their high school years. But we got Pickens, Zimmerman, Gonzalez, and then after that, Hazen's another one that really. I guess concerns me still. I'm still not sold on Harry Hazen as a starter, honestly.
He did pretty good though. They ran it inside for a lot of the year, and he still averaged 15 points a game. That's pretty good for a shooting guard.
I would agree. I'm not terribly I don't think he's a terrible starter. I'm just still a little skeptical, I guess would have been the better way to phrase that. But it's just hard to peg this team because they have a lot of front court, and then they have Van Gilder, who apparently Mofo has a man crush on. Why don't you just make a big polo trade for him, and then your life will be complete.
Hold on, I'm not the one who should. He's from Canada. Haas should be the one.
Yeah, exactly. That means he's probably the greatest point guard of our generation.
What is he? The next Steve Nash?
No, he's actually from South Africa. Little known fact.
Yeah, well...
Dirk Van Gilder?
Yes. Also,
yes.
Well, no, he's got Canada written. That's the college he went to, Canada University.
In South Africa.
In South Africa, yes.
All right.
Anyway,
it's next to Texas A&M, I think, somewhere around there.
I'm just not, I'm not totally convinced as to what... I just don't... I mean, is Van Gilder starting? Is that for sure? Or is Wheeler starting? Or
I would think that Van Gilder is going to start, especially after last year's postseason.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think this team will definitely be a playoff team again. I think when you have Zimmerman, Gonzalez, and Pickens, you can't really argue that they're not good enough to make the playoffs. The shooting guard and point guard concerns me. Also, Suarez's role, of course, always concerns me since I think he gets a little bit overhyped. I don't know what he's going to be doing. If he's not their main bench piece, I don't know who's going to be, because I'm looking at their backup centers and power forwards, and I'm seeing literally nothing.
Yeah.
So I'm seeing their only bench options as Dave Wheeler and Neil Suarez, and that concerns me. But other than that, I think it's a pretty well-built team. He's just a few pieces away. I haven't seen him really try and make any moves, but it's Ron, so I doubt I will, but who knows.
Yeah, for me, I think I like their starting five. I like it obviously a bit more than you do, and I think Dave Wheeler is a very good guy to have as a backup. But really, he can only really play the two guard spots. And like you said, his backup big men are absolutely pathetically awful. They're some of the worst backup bigs. I guess Cecil Lehman can score, sort of, but I mean every backup listed as a small forward to a center they'd probably be on injured reserve on most teams that you consider contenders or even just good teams, which I think that could be a really big issue, especially if he gets any sort of an injury.
You put a claim for Dale Green, so there's that.
Oh yeah, there you go. Hodge, you're probably being generous by saying they're IR players. They're probably not even that good.
Well, I mean, Cecil Lemon can score, so some people care about that from their big men, but not me personally.
I mean Donaldson and Davis, they're so bad.
Oh no, yeah, they're absolutely complete hot garbage, highest order. And Dale Green is not really going to solve any of those problems.
Yeah, I think you guys are. I mean, I think Tyler's underrating them a little bit because they were very close to winning the East last year. And I mean, Pickens going down in training camp hurts a little, but I think he's still going to be great. And the front court is probably the best in the league. It's tough to think of a better one, but I like Van Gooder. I think he played great in the playoffs. I think the training camp boost is not a surprise after the great playoffs he had. I think that was a sign of things to come. And I think Hazen's actually a really good defender, and I like him as a starting shooting guard next to Pickens. So I think Philly. I mean, I think they're going to be a really good team, but I could see them finishing as a 6 or 7 seed again, and then making some noise in the playoffs.
I definitely like them. I didn't mean to make it sound like I hated them, but
you can't help it though.
Yeah, I can't. I'm sorry.
There's deep-seated animosity with Ron that
I really just hate every other team in ABL, so it's really hard for me to get positive about everything.
I think this is it's a very good team. Didn't they go really far in the playoffs last year? I think they
did. They beat my team actually last year.
Oh, even better. So I think this team is really, they stood pat, but that's probably what they needed to do. Getting Pickens was the move that they made in the offseason, and I think they're going to have a good run.
All right, so I think that sums up Philly pretty well. Now we're moving on to the Wizards, and now it's so appropriate that Doug gets to talk about his buddy Hodge. So
absolutely.
Go ahead,
I wish I was there this weekend to tell Hodge this in person, but I actually think this Wizards team he didn't really do very much this offseason except one big trade for Tassio Vega, which I really, really liked for him. So I think he obviously trusts Klaus Cole enough to trade Omar, and I think that was a good move. Now he can stick to his rebounding big man, blocking center power forward, and then he can have his outside guys. It's a typical Hodge team. I think it's put together very well, and hopefully they will suck again in the playoffs.
Yeah, me too. I kind of hope that.
I love the Wizards. I was looking at the roster. I didn't realize how much I loved them until I looked at the roster. I think this is probably the best team in the East this year. Now that I'm looking, I think Charles Bond is probably the best backup big man in the league now after that trade. So that's a great move by Hodge. I think Klaus Cole going up at training camp and rebounding alleviates any concern Hodge had about him. And I think Vega, putting him next to Clinton is perfect fit because Clinton's a really good offensive player and Vega's a decent offensive player, but he's like an elite defender. And Christopher Lloyd is kind of an underrated point guard. He's just a solid player. He's like somebody you don't have to worry about. He's not going to be great, but he's going to be very solid as a starter. And I think and Darius Stock is one of the best big men in the league defensively. He's like a modern day Hassan Whiteside, I would say. And I feel like probably they're 7 deep, like with Ashford as a 6th man. Their 7 deep rotation is among the best in the league, and I feel like the Wizards. If I could repick, I'd probably pick the Wizards to win the East this year. I just think they're really, really good, and I think Hodge he deserves some GM of the Year votes this year because of the team he's put together. I think he's just done a great job.
I agree completely with you. I should definitely win GM of the Year. I felt like that Omar as once again proved to me how much I don't care if my big men can score a lot. And that's why I love that trade I made with Seth so much because it was perfect for both teams.
Right. Both.
He got a perfect power forward for an inside offense. And I think the bigger part for me for getting Vega wasn't just because he's a great starter, but also I feel like Tim Ashford is a very, very good 6th man because he can play. His defense is so good from small forward to point guard, and he's got good handling. And he's just not like an amazing starter, but I think he'll be very good as a backup. And I'm really happy I got Charles Bond because he does the things that my starting big man can't do. Like he's a very good rebounder. He brings an actual inside scoring presence, which usually I don't have from my big men. I would rather have a better third string point guard than Joe Davis. That's my big concern.
Quick, Hodge, defend the Charles Bond trade from MSC's perspective. Go.
I don't even know what he was thinking. Honestly, I have no idea. I'm actually a little surprised it was even passed because I feel like Charles Bond was vastly underrated when that trade was brought through. And even Raymond Wright actually had a pretty good TC. But he's not going to play at all, but he had a good TC regardless.
I passed it because he's like 34, isn't he, Charles Bond? Yeah. So in MSC he's not trying to win this year. So he took a flyer on a couple of younger guys, and Bond is old. So if Bond were a couple years younger, I wouldn't have passed it.
MSC is trying to devote $40 million to 2 mediocre guys for the next 3 seasons. So
that's his prerogative. Okay.
Yeah, that was. I don't know. I love that trade for me. Obviously, I got like 2 big expirings, which was good because I was starting to get a little JB-ish in my giant contracts all over my team. But anyways, obviously I like my team because I built it. So
is Tyler still alive? We haven't heard from him.
Yeah,
he's just in awe staring at the screen of that amazing Wizards team.
I'm letting the Hodge circle jerk in before I go ahead and
piss all over it.
I just I don't. Sure, I love the team. Let's keep going.
Really? Is that all you have to say?
I'm sure. I don't want to interrupt what you guys are doing here with your. I just don't love this team as much as you guys do, and I feel really out of place talking negatively about it after.
Well, just say, what don't you love? I want to hear what don't you love about him.
I don't like Christopher Lloyd. I think I've stated that a few times. He's a 9 assist kind of guy, 2.5 turnover kind of guy.
Listen to him. He has no conviction behind what he's saying. He's actually just hating right now for hating.
That's kind of count.
Yeah.
No,
that's par for the course with these podcasts, though. So I'm not too.
I don't hate the Wizards. I really don't. I said I didn't love them as much as you guys did. That doesn't mean I hate them. I think they're for sure top 3 seed, without a doubt at this point. But you guys, the way you're making it sound like is that this team is flawless. They could win 82 games and sweep every team in the playoffs.
I think they're pretty flawless. To be honest. I don't see a flaw on their team.
I just don't see too much. I don't see too much offense is my issue here. I mean, Stock can't score. Cole is like a 14 point per game scorer at most.
Yeah.
Vega's got some offense, but
Vega and Clinton will both get 20.
Okay, but Vega, his shooting percentage, I know he didn't play starter minutes last year, and that's fine, but if you look at his actual percentages, they've been dropping for the past 7 seasons now, so that concerns me a lot, as well as Ashford, I don't know, I don't like the B- outside. I don't know if he was B- last year. If he was, then he still only scored 17 points per game last season too. Clinton can score. I will agree Clinton can score, but outside of that, I don't see a surefire 22 plus point per game guy. I think Vega's going to get probably right around 19 and 20, probably on pretty poor percentages. Stock can't score, Cole can't score. Lloyd will be around 18, 17 kind of guy. I think I don't know. I like this team. They're top 3 seed, definitely. I completely agree with that. And the trade for Bond was absolutely a great deal for Hodge. I also agree with that. I just don't think they're as impeccable and perfect as you guys are making it out to be. I'm not trying to hate, though.
Yeah. The defense is so good, you probably don't need to score a whole lot of points with this team.
I agree with that.
Yeah, that's usually how I try and operate my business. Anyways, enough about Washington. That's
okay. Yeah, well, as long as
that team.
We're making Hodge uncomfortable.
Yeah, this is getting awkward now.
Now move on to the Central. I'm up with the Hawks, the new Cubs hater team, Hawks. So I love the offseason he had. I think he made great decision after great decision. Backing up to the Adrian Cole trade last year. I put together that trade for them, but still, it was a great trade for both teams. And I feel like Steve Bell had a huge training camp, and he's gonna be a factor if he plays. I think he's a third string right now, which is a mistake. But Russell went up in training camp. Hutchinson had a huge training camp. That was his big offseason move. He got Hutchinson, and Hutchinson is probably one of the rookie of the year favorites. I'm not sure he's going to start over Harrison, but I think he is. But he's really good as a rookie. He went up in defense. He went up in outside. He stayed in handling, which is already very good for rookie B+. This team is not going to win this year, that's for sure, but they have a lot of good young talent. Cubs Hater's done a great job, like I said before. He's done a great job just getting rid of WC's old and overrated team, and he's gotten a bunch of young assets, a lot of talent here. Like Darwin Sullivan had a very, very good training camp. Ray Weaver didn't do anything, but he's still a decent prospect for a big man. And Rob Fern, he could trade Rob Fern, he can keep Rob Fern. He's got a lot of options of what to do. His team is going to lose a lot this year, but he doesn't have his picks, so that hurts a little bit. But he's still made a lot of progress. He can see what he's got from his team this year and just keep making solid moves. And he really picked up on things fast for a new GM, and I'm really impressed by him so far.
Yeah. I really love the moves he made, like you said, and but I also I kind of agree with the Steve Bell thing. I think he had a very good training camp. I don't remember him being anywhere looking nearly as good as that. And I definitely think with Fern, Bell, Russell, and Hutchinson, those four are they're pretty good now. I would actually almost consider starting Bell and using Russell as a sixth man since he's going to want to try and win, since he doesn't have his own pick. But I'm not as big a fan of the big man as you. I guess Darwin is he's good. He's a good rebounder at least, so he's got that going for him. But the rest of his other big men are, I mean, I do sort of have a man crush on Lee Vito, but he clearly does not like him at all. But yeah, I mean, he's got a lot of good young pieces. He dumped all of the WC sort of guys, as they will forever be known. But obviously this year they're going to suck or be rather low because their big man presence right now is probably the worst in the league. Yeah. But going forward, I would probably keep Rob Fern if I was them, even though I don't really like inside shooting small forwards, typically speaking.
Yeah, being a WC guy is like the opposite of being a Paul Heyman guy.
Yes. Your career is destined for failure at that point.
I would never want to be a WC guy. I mean, I think I would trade Rob Fern if I was him. I agree with what was just said about not having the great outside for a wing. I mean, I think definitely his next move is upgrading in the front court, but I have to echo what everyone said about how great a job he's done so far. Almost suspiciously good, if you know what I mean.
Like he maybe Charlie incognito.
Everyone's Charlie. Every new GM who's good is Charlie.
Yeah, exactly.
I knew it. He's got like 6 or 7 accounts in this league. I'm actually Charlie also. I might as well get that out there.
No wonder so many babies are dying.
They're just so delicious. I can't help myself.
Oh, there's another sound clip to add for Hodges' creepiness. I will agree that he's made a lot of good moves. I don't like the depth chart that he set is the one thing that I'll say. I don't like the way he's setting his depth chart at all. But other than that, I mean, you can't really complain about the things he's done. He has a direction, and it's the first time I've seen the Hawks with an actual direction in a really long time, other than just on the stay on bottom. So it's nice to see an actual like plan be implemented in Atlanta and some trades happen and not as much overvaluing. It's refreshing to have a new GM in there who's actually cares and is doing things and isn't just phoning it in and doing what they have to stay alive in the league. So if he gets the depth chart stuff figured out, though, I think this team's going to be really good in a few seasons, and they're definitely on their way there now. I love Dave Hutchinson. I just want to say that now.
Yeah, me too. I really, really like him. He's like he almost looks like a Louis Rogers type, but he's got like more upside, I find, because his defense is actually decent for now.
Please, he's not even the best point guard in that draft.
Yeah, Homer. All right. So now, before we move on to the Hornets, I don't know if you guys saw the trade that just happened.
I did see that trade. Yes.
So keep that in mind. Hodge, yes. You're going first, and keep in mind that he also said he's not starting Ross Falk. I just asked him, so keep that in mind. Go ahead.
Okay, well then now I'm not really sure how I feel about that trade, because Ross Falk is just he can only back up at to the guard spots. That's it. I mean, that's why that confuses me. Anyways, even ignoring that, I love the Hornets. I love their starting 5. Probably because their team sort of reminds me of my own team, and that's complete ego talking. But I just love Brad Key as a very versatile guy. He's become so overrated or underrated by people or some sort of a rating system. I don't know. I feel like people have these really weird expectations of him that I don't understand. He's just a very solid all-around player. I mean, if you can get 4 assists a game and 20 points out of a player, that's good to have. Steven Marino's TC concerns me because his handling dropping is more important to me for the sort of role he plays compared to improving his scoring. I mean, I sort of like the trade for Falk. I get it, but it's kind of weird to try and figure out where he's going to be put since obviously you're not going to bench Mike Reynolds.
I think he's going to shop around Reynolds. Dewey said that he's going to try to trade Mike Reynolds.
Anytime you can trade 2 first rounders against a 31-year-old backup shooting guard, you got to do it.
Yeah. you just got to pull the trigger on that one.
Man, poor Devonta listening to this.
Honestly, I don't know how that trade got passed. Like Chris Brown is probably a fair trade for Ross Falk just by himself.
And yeah, and also his backup big man is sort of a concern. And this is coming from somebody that's like a huge Mark Skull supporter for his entire career, but he's just not very good anymore. I mean,
Mark Skull's gone now. He was part of that deal, so.
Then he has absolutely no big. Is Rodney Main? What is he even?
Rodney Main's there, but Roland, Brown, and Skull are gone, so he's rolling with McVicker, Higgins, and Main.
Okay, I take it back. I'm not really as big a fan of this team as I was 5 seconds ago, knowing that. No, I mean McVicker and Higgins. I still think they're very good starters. I love their starting five. I would. It seems hard to think I'd ever say this, but I would start Ross Falk, and maybe look at making Brad Key into a sixth man, since he's so versatile and his handling is great, and he's a good defender that can help cover up for whoever he moves around, wherever he moves them. I feel like Mike Reynolds can provide a lot of scoring even if you slide him up to small forward, because his defense doesn't really matter too much.
Mike Reynolds might have to play power forward at this rate, so.
Wow.
He's probably better than Donald Roland.
He's gone too.
No, but I mean, I really like this team. I feel like they have a really nice, well-balanced starting five. Mike Reynolds is just perennially an amazing scorer, which is obviously it's a good skill to have, being amazing at scoring. And I don't know, I still like this team, even if they don't start Ross Falk. It's things you thought you'd say in a podcast, but there it is.
I was picking up Devontae. He's still got a great team, so let's get that out of the way. McVicker and Higgins are one of the best young big man duos in the league, without a doubt. They're great defenders, they're great rebounders. McVicker keeps going up in training camp, so he's probably going to keep getting better. And like you said, the starting five is great. Even if he doesn't start Ross Falk is a great backup guard at the least. I mean, he's got to figure out a way to play Falk because he traded so much for him. But if he trades Reynolds, then it's a whole different story. We'll see what happens, what he gets for him. But I mean, Marino was the first team all-league point guard last year for a reason. He's a great defender. He's a very good handler. I don't think the handling drop will affect him at all.
I'm not worried about that.
He's a great shooter. He's a top 5 point guard, maybe top 3. And then Brad Key's underrated by everyone but JB, because I mean, JB thinks he's a superstar, but he's not. He's just a very good starter. But everyone hates on him because JB loves him so much. And I mean, this team could win the Central. They could easily win the Central, and I mean that trade really killed their big man depth. That's gonna be a problem, but we'll see what happens. A lot can happen with this team still.
And and they have a really good defense too. I should have mentioned that. There's, other than Mike Reynolds' poor defense, I mean, all of their starters are either A- guys, and Kia Marino are pretty good defenders also. And Ross Falk's not a total slouch on defense himself, so.
No. I mean, I feel bad for getting into Devonta there a little bit. I mean, I still think this is a great team. I loved what he did with it prior to that awful trade, but no, I think it's a very well put together team. That it speaks that you can make a trade like that, and it's probably still a top 4 team in the East. It's almost like the reverse Miami Heat in that they have all guards and no front court right now.
Right.
So, I mean, maybe they should just trade a little bit of depth for each other, and then everything should be solved.
If you combine the teams, though, they'd be great. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect.
All right, I think we can move on to the Bulls now, and that is Tyler. Tyler, you can talk about the defending East champions with the controversial offseason, the Chicago Bulls. Let's see what you have to say.
Yeah, their offseason was less than stellar, I will say that. I would not rank their offseason top 27 in the league for offseasons. So, but, anytime you can let a starting small forward walk in free agency and not get anything in return, I think you got to do it. So
you got to do it.
Yeah. I just, it confuses me as to what Raider guy's plan was, and I know he's gonna post like a 3-page long response to this anyway, so I'll just wait to hear that answer. But you got Zach Frost still, and Vyacheslav Voronkov, and I guess Ray Bonds is still there.
Yeah, he's pretty good. So
yeah. So other than that, though, I guess Dwayne Todd's there.
Yeah. It's just... No, but I actually agree with Tyler. I think Dwayne Todd might be like the 4th most dependable player on this team right now.
All right, I'm talking. Stop with your bullshit. Look,
wow.
With Chicago, I just don't understand. First of all, I don't know who's starting a power forward. I don't know who's starting a small forward. I mean,
I think it's Isaiah Williams and
Look,
Eric
Mofo.
Eric Boland.
I know that technically a roster is posted. What I'm saying is I don't know who's starting at power forward and who's starting at small forward.
I know what you're saying, yeah.
So, but I mean, Eric Boland, I guess, definitely has attributes, so that's a good thing. And then
yes, I'd say he's got 6 of them at least.
Yeah, for sure. I just, I like Ritter guy. I like him a lot. It just confuses me because he's never really seemed to have trouble with free agency before. Or maybe
Really?
I've never paid attention. I've probably just never paid attention.
Yeah.
We're going to go with that one. But, there's 2 big holes on this team now. There's not much depth. This is a team that won a lot of games last year, I'm pretty sure. I didn't fact check that. I think they won a lot of games last year, so it just, confuses me why you would let Selden walk for nothing and then somehow not get anything out of free agency. It's like,
especially with all that cap space money they had too, which makes it even worse.
He made the mistake. He went for the home run. He went for I think Marino and Pickens both. He, instead of just adding to the team he already had that was good enough to win the East, he went for the home run. He tried to build like a super team, and he's paying for it now. He swung for the fences, then he missed.
I mean, what would have Marino or Pickens? I will sort of kind of understand that one, but what would Marino have done? You have Voronkov and Bonds. Like, I understand adding Marino. I mean, you can't go wrong with adding Marino, but why?
All he needed to do was re-sign Selden, maybe add a young small forward, and look for a power forward. And that's it. And his team was set.
Yeah, like
Selden, power forward, small forward. That's it.
Because I don't get, because even after he did strike out on his guys, it's not like people were throwing out tons of offers for Wayne Selden. He was just sitting there waiting to be re-signed by the team he was just starting for. I mean, I've never seen a team so negatively affected by a bad Tom Cabrera TC in my life.
Well, you're actually right there too.
Wow. I honestly think Tom Cabrera should still probably start though, because Eric Boland.
Yeah, probably.
Eric Boland, come on. Let's just start Dave Hampton. I mean, why not?
Let's not do that. Don't get suicidal here.
That's total insanity. And but yeah, I mean, it's after those main 3 guys, it's just like it's like a mountain cliff drop to the next talent level.
Let's note that Voronkov had another huge training camp. This guy he's gone up. He's had like 3 huge training camps in a row.
Oh yeah, Voronkov's a beast.
I think he trains with the same guy trains with the same guy as Ivan Drago or something. I don't know.
Ritter guy probably won't try and re-sign Voronkov next year either, so it'll be fun.
I don't think he's that crazy.
Yeah, exactly. I know exactly what he tried to do this offseason. He really wanted to help Ray Bonds' MVP campaign, so he gutted the entire team.
There you go.
Always a bold strategy.
I really don't want to rip on Raider Guy too much though, because I really do like Raider Guy.
He did make the finals last year, so there's really only so much ripping you can do before it's like, well, he was in the finals, so
right.
Yeah.
The only other person that can say that is Baldwin. So there you go.
So let's move on from them, and Thug is up. This is working out great because Thug gets to talk about his former apprentice, GBB.
He can be my apprentice again. I like the moves he made this offseason.
I thought Rocco was now. Anyway, go ahead.
Thug kind of reminds me of a Donald Trump, so this works.
There you go.
That's great. Yeah. I mean, I think this Cavs team is it's starting to take place a little bit. It's starting to take shape a little bit better than it did last year. I think. I mean, the Yoder free agent signing was just a great move. JB tried to do the same thing with Ray Bonds, but failed miserably. But GBB actually did pull this one off. I like the point guards. Paul Tinsley. I think someone should have tried to steal him away in free agency because I mean he's proven that he can be a good starter for somebody on his team. So I think he's going to at least net a first for GBB for sure. I mean, Jay Ritz Jr. Come on, you can tell this guy's still my apprentice because he traded for Jay Ritz Jr. One of the best power forwards in the game, bar none. And it's upsetting that Luis Wald had a bad TC. I actually did not see that coming at all. I don't know about you guys. I thought he was going to be a really good player, but it looks like that was definitely a huge setback for this team. Miles had a good TC though. I mean, I like the way this team is developing. He doesn't have any of his firsts for the next 3 seasons, so that's not necessarily good. So hopefully, if he trades Yoder or he trades somebody, he can get something good out of it. But it looks like it's really going to depend on how well his guys develop, like Jaden and Charles Bailey.
You don't think they have any shot at the playoffs this year, then?
I mean, if he keeps Yoder, I think he definitely has a shot. I don't know if it sounds like he wants to trade Yoder, though.
Yeah, and I think, and if Miles can sort of, up his game a little bit, I mean, him and Yoder is like, certainly on paper, it seems like it'd be a good set of wings. Charles Bailey had a good TC and
did a great training camp.
Yeah, great training camp. And Jay Rich Jr. Can score sometimes if he's in the mood that season. He's capable of being a scorer.
You've always hated Jay Rich Jr. though. Come on.
But I love last year he got over 10 rebounds a game, so he's off my list now.
Last year he was great. He was one of the best power forward seasons in the league.
He had his career year. He got if he can keep getting over 10 rebounds a game, 15, 16, 10 on very efficient percentages of 4 blocks. That's nothing to complain about.
Not at all.
And he's still young too, so there you go.
I think Bailey is the key to this team. Like Doug said, they can make the playoffs with Yoder, I feel like, but it all comes down to Bailey. Tinsley, he had a bad training camp, so I don't think he's going to start for JBB, and I don't think he can get a first form anyway. I think that's unrealistic. But
Tyler's just handing out first, so maybe he could.
Oh yeah, that's a.
I don't have any left to give.
Jeez.
And if I would have known that Ross Falk would only go for 2 firsts and a lot of big man depth, I probably would have jumped all over that. So.
Wow, exactly. Poor Devonta. Anyway, Charles Bailey is the key to this team, and if he goes off, then the Cavs can go off. If not, then they're probably going to at least another year or two before they can make the playoffs.
Bailey reminds me a lot of Overlock, and so now I'm just wondering if the stench of Magoo is still on this team.
Yeah, that's actually what I was thinking. But Overlock at one point looked like he could have gotten better. Hopefully Bailey goes in a positive direction and not in the Everett Overlock's career direction.
All right, moving on to one of the most popular, hated on GMs lately. That's MPH and the Pistons. That is me going here. I basically summed it up like this after free agency. He's got the same exact team that he had last year, except he's got a bunch of players making maxes now, which is the worst thing that he had last year. I mean, what is he doing? Like, why would you want to bring back Brian Fowler and Chad Chavez? I mean, I like Chad Chavez, but Fowler and Chavez for maxes when you win like 32 games with them last year, and then you added Richard Kennemar as your big off-season move. Richard Kennemar is probably the fourth best point guard in this team. Sorry, Haj. I know we argue about
Kennemar. Wait. No, yeah, you're right. He's probably the 4th best point guard on the team.
I think Kennemar should start, but I'll get there, I guess.
Charles Scott actually had a really good training camp, so he might actually have a future on this team. But Bill Curran was a complete bust. Yaroslav he looks like Rondo, which is not good in EBL. LeBron Jr. He got maxed for 2 years. I don't even want to talk about that.
Making daddy's money.
Their big men are just horrible. He mentioned Tony Helton had a nothing training camp, and that's true. I mean, you can't even. Do you guys realize how bad Tony Helton was last year when he started? He averaged 7.8 rebounds a game, and he's bad. He didn't do anything in training camp. So, like, Brian Evans is more ratings than production. I mean, Felix had a good training camp, but he still can't shoot. Brian Fowler, I mean, he had an okay training camp. I don't know. Chavez is the only player I like on this team, and I think the Pistons are really bad, and I think they're going to continue to be really bad without a complete overhaul.
I actually really didn't like Brian Fowler's training camp at all. I'd much rather he have kept his defense and not scored as much because, I thought last year I thought he might have. He could have been like a John Will sort of guy, and now he just looks like a really mediocre to poor player because I don't know. Something about that B+ defense just makes me leery if the guy can't score like crazy.
He looks like Warren Merchant.
Yeah, that's not good. And like you said, the point guards, it's like I don't even know. I don't even know what to say really.
Seriously though,
I hope all that cap space was worth getting Richard Kennemar. That's all.
He looks like Wanna Bale.
That's not good.
Yeah, I remember Wanna Bale. He was actually okay though, Wanna Bale.
I want to bail on this team, so.
Witty.
No, it's not. There's nothing clever about it, just like the way this team was put together. Look, who is deserving of the money on this team that they're making? It's not Brian Fowler.
Chad Chavez. Chavez is a good player. I like him a lot.
Chavez.
Like we all know it's fake money, and yet we're so upset about this team.
Yeah.
I feel like this team is ruining our real life economy. So look, I mean, Bill Curran, LeBron Jr., Richard Kinnear definitely is deserving of that.
He's at least worth a first, if you ask me, but whatever.
Hell no.
I would take a second for him. Like, if MPH offered me a second to take him, I would probably do it. But, I mean, that's, even then.
Okay, I don't think he's that bad, but he's certainly...
come on, Hodge. What is good about him?
He was a good backup last year. He's where on Washington?
When he played the 9 minutes per game? Yeah, I guess if you only have to play him 9 minutes per game, he might suffice.
You missed Taj go crazy in free agency when he lost them. So
I would rather have Richard Kinnear as my third stringer than the guys I have now.
You losing Richard Kinnear, it's about as big of a deal as me losing someone I didn't even have, Hodge. I mean, look, there's...
Like Wayne Jones?
Yes.
Anyways, Detroit's it's causing just madness to occur, and so let's just move away from that car wreck. Also, Detroit probably wouldn't exist as a city by 2032.
That's probably right. Anyway, I think that's enough about Detroit for now. Indiana is up, and that is Hodge. Good old moron.
Yes, good old moron. I mean, there's not really like a ton of stuff to say because it wasn't the most super splashing offseason, but I mean, they didn't really need it. Their team looks very good again. I think Elin went up in inside. And he's obviously like a great defensive anchor. He might be the best center in the league. Montana showed he's a very capable player last year. He played very well. Bart Roser is an amazing scorer, even though he's sort of doesn't win the playoffs a lot. But I mean, I still think he's capable of winning a title. Louis Rogers' transformation into Shannon Scott is almost complete.
It is complete.
Yeah. Pretty much. And Daniel Acree is a very underrated backup, I find. But the small forward situation, I think, could be trouble. And I actually don't really mind Edgar Holford because I like what he does with his rebounding. And he seems smart enough to not shoot too many shots. But, I mean, I think definitely if they could get like a more solid small forward, they'd really, really be dangerous. But they're certainly a contender in the East. Certainly a contender in the Central, but as much as I think, really the thing with me is I don't know, I'm just not as big a fan of Louis Rogers because his defense just upsets me, and it'll always upset me to have a point guard that can't defend in a league where point guards can just go off like crazy.
Oh, when did you turn into JB? All your defense. Anyway,
I believe it was about 6 seasons ago I turned into.
Ever since he adopted the Polo motto, he's big on defense. So.
Okay. I like the Pacers. I pretty much agree with everything that Hodge said about each individual except for Bart Roser, who's the worst player of all time. But I also disagree with the Louis Rogers statements that were made. I think Rogers is a tremendous point guard, and I will not.
I agree.
Although, you know what, his shooting percentages haven't shown me too much so far, so I hope to see a little bit more out of him this year.
He's gonna go up on that. He keeps going up in training camp. I think he went up and outside again. So he's fine.
But anyway, as long as this team, the way it's constructed right now, they'll be a top 3 seed, and they'll be a first round exit because Roser can't handle his shit in the playoffs. So.
Well, I don't know about that, but
I'm pretty sure.
I think they're a small forward away. Like I picked them to win the East because I just think one of these years, when Moran puts together a great team, they're going to win in the playoffs. And he's done it year after year, and he keeps losing in the playoffs. One of these years, he's just going to win, and I think it could be this year. But it would happen for sure if you got a small forward because Edgar Holford is trash. As a backup, he's okay, but he held them back last year. I'm not huge on Montañez either, but at least he produced, and he's A+ defense. But Holford is not good enough to start. And if they had a small forward who could start, like even like a Wayne Selden, if they had Wayne Selden on this team, they'd win the East. But Edgar Holford is not good enough, in my opinion.
Yeah, if they had a small forward and a shooting guard, I'd like them a lot more. So.
Shut up, Tyler.
Just to clarify, I think Mofo's already picked 3 teams to win the East in this podcast.
Yeah, and I think Tyler's had about 5 they're going to finish in the top 3. So
yeah, I've noticed that too.
The East will be interesting this year. We're going for a new system of 3 teams can finish in the top 3 seeds, or 5 teams.
I
think 3 teams is what we just said.
I assumed by East we were talking about Kanye's future kids. So
Right.
Oh yeah. Speaking of people that Tyler absolutely loves.
I get to talk about Bauer.
No, I get to talk about Bauer, don't I?
No, that was Hodge did the Pacers, right?
I think this is like the first time anyone's been excited to talk about Bauer in their entire life.
Yeah, Hodge and Tyler.
I really just wanted to hum the Fandango theme all over it.
You can do that while I talk about the Bucks. I will approve of that. Or maybe no, I'll just dub it in under this. Don't worry about it.
All right, go ahead.
The Bucks look like a team that play in Milwaukee. I don't like Rob Andrew. I think I've stated this a few times before, probably every time we've done a podcast from the history of any time till now. Especially, it seems like his handling keeps going down. I don't know that for a fact. I'm too lazy to check the backup site.
It did this year.
Definitely did.
Okay, yeah, all right. So it definitely went down. He definitely went down in like everything, and by everything I mean outside and handling, which are 2 very important things. And then he's banking on Ruiz to be a good starter, which he was last year, I guess. I'm still waiting to see Ruiz like over an extended period of time before I declare my feelings for him. But I don't like Jerome Berry. I told him when he made that trade I didn't like that trade because his field goal percentage last year slipped a lot, and I know Mofo thinks it's going to bounce back, but if it doesn't, then he's just screwed because he has no defense, and the only positive thing about him was his scoring, so if he can't score as well, I'm not sure what the deal is with him. And then, of course, you have all EBL whatever Juan Kuhn, who had a bad training camp and probably won't do well, but will still somehow be all-league first team because assists. But I really like David Guth. Because I need to say something positive, because Bauer might kill me.
He'd probably kill himself before he'd kill you.
No, it'd be a murderous. It'd be a Benoit situation.
Okay, nice.
Look,
get your Bibles ready now, just in case.
All right, hey, that's way too far.
All right, Sousa, let's calm down.
I really like David Guth though. It might be because his last name's Guth. It might be Guth, but I'm gonna go with Guth. He's a 19. Yeah, he's a Guth player. He's a 19, 10.5 guy. He has the A rebounding, but he doesn't rebound like an A rebounder, which is what
he went up in training camp rebounding it inside. Just keep that in mind.
Oh yeah, he did. You're right. So maybe he'll play like an A rebounder, or maybe he'll be Ernest Fowler. I don't know.
He's already way better than Ernest Fowler ever was. So.
Okay, I meant in rebounding terms. I understand that Ernest Fowler sucks and David is a good player. But no, I like the Bucks. I guess kind of. They're a top 3 seed for sure. Realistically, though, I see them around the 7-8 spot. I don't like Jerome Berry. I don't like Rob Andrew, especially that training camp Rob Andrew had. Like, I know he only went down in 2 things, but I just feel like he looks terrible now. Yeah. He kind of reminds me of like Karan Iverson, and I don't like Karan either. But I don't know. I see like a 6, 7, 8 seed, 7 or 8. I'm gonna go with 8. I'm gonna say they're gonna be an 8 seed, but. Because they have no depth and not much defense. They have no defense. This is like Hodge's worst nightmare of a team. But
yeah, I think just the Barry and Kuhn hybrid of forwards on defense absolutely terrifies me as a concept of starting. I mean, obviously, there's really no other choice. You're not going to start Dwayne Schwint because he's Dwayne Schwint. But on the other hand, I actually really like Ruiz, and I think he's still 24, so he could get better. What one would hope over time. I think this team could have a solid year, but it'll really depend on if Juan Kuhn can play as good as he did before, and isn't as affected by this TC as he looks to have been. That'll be a big factor for me personally, and how far they go in the season. And Eli Yang also had a very good offseason.
Yeah, he did. He's a good backup. Obviously, I completely disagree with Tyler about Jerome Berry. I've always liked him. You're going to live with the poor defense, but I think he's a very efficient scorer. He's very consistent. Look at those years he had scoring. He averaged at least 20 points per game every year, and that's tough to get. It's not easy to get from a starting player year in and year out. So, I am concerned about Rob Andrew. I think he's gonna keep them lower than they should be before training camp. But Ruiz is going to pick him up a little bit because he went up and outside. And I think they're going to get a 6 to 8 seed, like you guys said. They're a good team. They're just in the East, being the 6 to 8 seed is very good. So, I don't know. If Guth becomes like one of the best centers in the league, which he already almost is, then they might have a little higher upside. But I don't know. It's still to be determined.
Yeah. I guess if they play the Pacers in the playoffs, they'll be fine since Roser sucks.
Yeah.
But then you'd have to see Rob Andrew against Bar Roser, and you might just explode.
That might do it. That might end my EBL career.
All right, so Doug gets to talk about the final team in the East, the Toronto Raptors.
We've been doing this for an hour and 15 minutes already, by the way.
It's pretty crazy.
It's all right.
So this is Streeter's team, the Toronto Raptors. He was shocked that Mofo picked him second to last in the East. I don't know how anyone could be shocked about this team being second to last in the East. It's a pretty awful team if you look at it from top to bottom. Whitehurst, I'm just not a big Whitehurst fan at this point. I know that he's the best player on this team by a mile, but I don't necessarily know what that means. I don't know why he decided to shop Maurice Hill already. Obviously he's he had a terrible training camp, but you gotta kind of at least stick that out a little bit, whatever. He just sticks something through his head as well. In terms of the rest of the team, Buford Lassard, I like him. Obviously, I drafted him. I think he's a good guy for number 29. He's probably one of the worst starters in the league because I had him starting on my team last year. So maybe at shooting guard he'll be a little bit different, but I doubt it. This team is just awful, and I'd be shocked if they somehow manage to win 25, 30 games this year.
Yeah, but they have John Albee, so
that's
John
true.
Albee's good. He is good.
John Albee was a really good move. I will give him that. It'll be interesting to see what he does.
I don't feel like I'm quite as negative as you guys seem to be. I think Albee and Whitehurst are pretty good players, especially if he were to run outside. I think Jim Ryan, you've kind of underrated him because he played very good last year. He's a very good defender and rebounder. We'll look at his numbers last year. And
he did play good last year.
All right.
Yeah, he played well last year.
I just need to see
sit on it.
Yeah, okay.
He's a very inefficient shooter.
I wasn't responding to the him playing good part last year. I was responding to the us underrating him part because I refuse to believe that just because he had one above average year suddenly means he's has a career turnaround.
But I feel like Lassard is he's a good guy to have next to Albee because of his handling, which will cover up a little bit of the fact that John Albee basically probably just stands there and shoots threes. If I had to find a real life equivalent to what he does, but outside of Jim Ryan, the big men, I think they have some good big men, but I'm not sure any of them are good starting big men. If that makes any sense to anybody.
Yeah. Besides Jim Ryan, you mean, right?
Oh yeah, other than Jim Ryan, yeah, that's I mentioned.
Yeah, they do have a lot of backup types. Maybe the French guy, I can never pronounce his name. Maybe he can start, but in an outside offense. But that's about it.
Yeah.
This. I picked them second to last for a reason. They're gonna score a lot of points, but their defense is also not very good. Whitehurst is a very good player, but he went down in training camp, and I hate when a point guard has C inside. I want him to at least have C+. I think that's going to limit him and his ability to score. Maurice Hill obviously was a huge setback. So, and obviously I made my feelings known about Buford Lassard, and I don't need to say anything else about him. But I think he's horrible. So this team just has a lot of bad players. They're just not gonna. They're gonna have a bad year, and I think it's gonna shock Streeter how bad his team's gonna be right away.
Yep.
Yeah. Yes, it will.
All right, so we can move on to the West now. I think I'm up here. Yeah, the Dallas Mavericks had one of the worst training camps you'll see in a long time. Poor Dub, but he does have an old team. So He made his big move. He got Purvis, and Purvis rewarded him by going down in 3 spots, which
Right.
isn't unexpected. Isn't unexpected because he's 36 and he's still going to be great, but it's going to hurt them a little bit. But he's still way better than what he had last year. Aaron Harrison, who's okay but not great. Anyway, Larry McDowell going down I think is a bigger factor. He went down in rebounding, defense, and inside, which is a disaster.
Wow.
And Sun Ma went down and inside. Bauer went down as small forward, but I think he went back up at shooting guard, so that's not a huge deal. And I've never been a huge fan of Scott Singley, obviously. I think last year he actually hurt them with his horrible shooting. He shot 33% from 3. I think that's more indicative of what kind of player he is. He's not a great – the year before that, he was a huge fluke for Indiana. I know Hodge would disagree with that, but you just have to look at his career numbers to see which year was a fluke. Then I think, having said all this about the bad things about Dallas, I think they're gonna be the top threat to Oklahoma City in the West, at least until Thug makes another trade, and or Tyler makes, I don't know. The Kings are pretty good, but I don't want to get ahead of myself. Anyway, the Mavs are
We can talk about the Kings.
The Mavs are a really good team, and I think they actually have a good bench. I like Seaman as a backup. I know that's
Yeah, I bet you do.
But
I will. You like Seaman.
Greg Ray is obviously a great backup.
Greg
He
is
went up and
backup.
inside again. Clay is a very versatile backup. And Bernard Ramos, he's got good depth, and he's got a good starting lineup despite the training camp from hell. And I mean, Dallas is really good. They're gonna be right there at the top of the West. We'll see. I mean, I don't know if they're good enough to win the East. To win the West, but we'll see.
Is Dallas going to win the East now, too?
Yes, they're moving. East.
They're probably top 3 in the East.
I don't like the Mavericks as much as Mofo does. I think they're for sure a top 3 team in the West, but
All right, that's 1. I'm just counting.
on a very real level, though, I think Purvis going down is going to hurt more than a lot of people are going to, because he's had about the same ratings for a consistent 6 or 7 seasons now.
Yeah.
And this is the first time he's really had a big dip. And I know he still looks good, but he doesn't look Purvis good anymore, which, he averaged, he shot over 50% just 2 seasons ago. From the field, not like from the field and from 3. And he still scored 23 points per game. But I think it's going to be a big dip. I think it's going to hurt quite a little bit. Bauer going down in defense hurts, and yes, I know that he went back up at shooting guard, but that means that he probably would have been an A- there if he hadn't gone down. So, and I agree with Mofo. I've never liked Scott Singley. Even the season that he referred to, I probably said on this podcast before that I like Scott Singley, but I was wrong. I don't like Scott Singley, and the season that Mofo was referring to in Indiana, where he put up 20 points per game, he still shot 43%. He's a career 43% shooter at this point from the field. I don't understand how anyone thinks that he's a good, productive person at this point. Sun Ma.
Oh yeah, Hodge. Yeah, Hodge, defend yourself. Why do you think he's a good productive?
I'll wait till he's done talking, then I'll chime in.
Sun Ma, pretty much, whatever. And McDowell, I've got to say, looks like the McDowell of the old rather than the past few seasons, because he just looks. I expect another poor McDowell year, and I don't know what that's going to do at center. I'm thinking more of a 4 seed for Dallas right now. So.
Obviously I like Scott Singley. That's no secret.
Let's go and get.
But just throw that out there, right? I love that man. But I think adding Purvis. I thought that was a great move. Even with his bad TC, he's still significantly better than Aaron Harrison. Obviously the TC wasn't great, and I think almost as big a thing for me with McDowell is I think his rebounding dropped, and obviously you have Greg Gray, who's a good rebounder, but when you put him with Ma, who wasn't rebounding very good last year either, it sort of makes his big men are kind of a dicey situation. Obviously Eric Bauer is a great scorer and a great all-around player. I still think if Singley could be a backup, he'd be a great 6th man, because he had 4 assists a game last year, and he's usually a very good passer from the small forward position. But, I think this team will probably finish with about the same record that they had last year, but I think their defense might be a bit worse after McDowell's TC. His drop in defense will affect them since the center is usually the anchor for a team's defense, and having that drop is not going to help in that regard.
Yeah.
All right, Denver, and that is Hodge again, right?
Yes.
Yes, Hodge. No more Joe Kills.
Okay, no more Joe Kills. Unfortunately, he wanted to come back. I think he just wanted to not be Denver's GM anymore. And looking at this team, I can see why he wouldn't want to be their GM anymore. And it'd almost be worth waiting 4 months to not have this awful team under your disposal. I mean, I don't really know what to say. They didn't get very good draft picks. I guess the Cavs picks they could still be good, but I mean, they only have 4 picks. They don't have their own pick. I honestly, there's not one player on this team that should be starting in EBL. No, there isn't. I mean,
he's right.
Their best. Yeah, I can't. There's none. There's no players that should be starting in EBL. And I dare to say maybe 2 or 3 would ever even have the potential to be a good starter in this league right now on this team.
Eric Zuckerman could be okay.
Yeah.
He's got promise.
Yeah, I like Eric Zuckerman. He's about the good young guy on the team, like the only good young guy on the team.
Yeah.
I mean, Wayne Jones will probably have a good year because he's the only guy that can shoot on the team, so that'll be good for him. But I mean, this is just a bad situation. Their draft picks, they don't have a lot of draft picks. As far as trade value, it's really, you're not going to be able to get a lot of value for a guy like Scotty Edwards. And I feel like I tried to negotiate a deal with this. Who's their GM now?
Landry Skins.
Landry Skins. And I don't know if he just didn't really understand how good certain players are. But he wanted to get Darius Stoke for Scotty Edwards and Wayne Jones last year. So I'm starting to wonder if he understands talent at all.
Well, you found
Richard Kennemar.
Yeah. Those like 8 things said to me at once. They were all true, though. No, this team is probably the worst team in the league. Like I said, nobody should be a starter that's on this team. They shouldn't be starting anywhere in the league. They have, I guess, they have Graham Klein, Eric Zuckerman, Joe, not even Joe Slay. He's not very good. I mean, I don't really like their young guys very much. It's an ugly situation. There's going to be a lot of work for their GM to do to turn it around.
Yeah. I was really hoping Joe Kills would have shown us what he could do, because this would have been his greatest challenge yet, turning this team into a playoff contender.
Yeah.
I actually would have voted him GM of the year if he could. If I'll vote the Landry Fields if he could if he could only change 2 players on this team and still make the playoffs with everything left with those 2 players, I would vote him GM of the year for sure.
That's like the best compo idea ever. Mofo should definitely do that. Just try to make 2 trades with this team and just every single season try to replay the season again
until they make the playoffs.
I'm sure it would happen eventually. Anyway, I think Hodge is kind of underselling a little bit. I like some of their players, like Graham Klein. He's actually a promising rookie. George Barnett's kind of a promising rookie. Joe Slay, he's young. You never know what could happen with an 18-year-old. David Doty had a huge training camp. He actually
never know, really.
Doty went up in inside handling and defense, so you never know. He might be a decent starter. Who knows?
A late bloomer.
But beyond that, yeah, they're pretty bad this year. They're going to be horrible. They're going to win like 20 games max, and that's it.
They have Tyler favorites, Ichi Tokunaga and Nate Stout. And
Nate Stout.
I mean, that helps.
God, yeah. I don't want to talk about them anymore. They're making me. I'm actually getting sad just looking at this roster.
I think we can move on to Houston. That is Tyler. Talk about the new Houston team.
Oh gosh, do you guys remember when Ichi Tokunaga was a 13-12 center? All right, sorry, Houston.
I do remember that actually.
And now he's like C, B minus, looks like the worst thing on the planet. But he fits right in. Houston. So, I gotta refresh because their team looks different now. Hold on, I gotta.
Well researched as always.
Yeah. Okay, good. I see Francisco Page on there. That means it's current. I like. Well, first off, fuck Thug. Second off, Rockets. look actually decent. I really like Jason Handy. Yeah, he's so close to being all A-minuses, and I just want that to happen so very badly. Emil Freeman, Thug got on that 1-year deal for him, and he looks pretty good. And by pretty good, I mean he looks really good. But obviously there are concerns about re-signing him. What trade value could you get for him? I know he probably could have gotten a late first from some douchey GM, but Emil Freeman looks good. Jason Handy looks good, and I like Francisco Page a little bit more than I used to.
No, you don't. No, you still hate him.
No, I don't. These past 3 years where he shot like 49%, his turnovers have been down a little bit. And by down a little bit, I mean the exact same, but somehow they just don't bother me as much anymore. I think more like the playoff success, and by I don't know. I like Francisco Page a little bit more. I don't know what it is. Enough. All right, we'll agree on that. But and Kang Chen is a rookie, and I think he's pretty good.
Training camp.
He had a really big training camp. That was a great pick by Thug. I don't know, if Thug's around to listen, if Thug's going to listen to this or not, but I don't want to talk him up too much. But I really like Kang Chen a lot, and he's also huge. He's 7'6", 358, which I always enjoy in my centers. So, but this team, I feel like they could be a playoff team this year. They're just like a few moves away, and there's some rumblings of things that could happen. So who knows what's going to be there and what's not. Also, I really like Alan Hodgin a lot. I want to make sure I talk about him. I think that was a really good pickup.
Another huge training camp.
Yeah. Thug he did a pretty good job drafting this year. So, good job, buddy.
Thank you.
I agree with Todd. Actually, this is probably my favorite Rockets team in many, many, many seasons. It feels like. Like you said, I think Hodgins and Chen were real like home run great picks. They both look great already. And I would certainly expect one of Freeman or Hodgin to be traded. Maybe for a shooting guard might not be bad, since I know that Thug likes to use Handy as the super six man. Of course, he might not be able to do that now since he looks pretty amazing. But I think Lawrence Davis also kind of had an underrated TC. He looks significantly better than I remember him being. But I definitely think if he could trade Freeman or Hodgins for someone to allow him to put even Lawrence Davis or Handy as a six man, this team would be very dangerous. And I mean, even Tyler Herron somehow has stayed the same despite being a robot at this point. I'm sure he's part android. I really like this Houston team. I think they're a real sleeper.
Well, I have a little bit of inside knowledge, so I'm not going to comment too much on what might happen. But Thug, what do you have to add on your team right now?
Well, I have even more insider knowledge than you do, Mofo, so maybe I should also refrain. I mean,
as presently constructed, what do you think of your team?
As presently constructed, I mean, the goal really always was to kind of pair up Kang Chen with Francisco Page there, and I think I've got the Twin Towers. Hopefully they can shoot free throws semi-decently, because I feel like they're going to go to the line about 20 times combined, the two of them. I'm not necessarily sure what kind of offense will be best for this team. I'll probably experiment a little bit, but I'm going to probably go inside for a couple of sims and just see, dump the ball into those two huge guys and see what can happen. But yeah, I'm not totally sure yet. I don't think I'm done tinkering with this team yet, but I definitely have a lot of good options. I wish I signed Freeman for more than a year, obviously, but
Emil Freeman is the most intriguing player in the league for me this year, because his per minute scoring numbers and his shooting the past 2 years in his limited minutes were amazing. They were off the charts, and that huge training camp he had,
he could have been a Detroit Piston, but instead he decided to get Richard Kennemore.
That was a way better
Chicago Bull. So.
Yeah, I just think he's very intriguing. I can't wait to see what he does in a sim, because with extended minutes, because I think he's got potential to be like a 25-point per game scorer and a balanced offense.
Yeah, he kind of reminds me like of Christopher Lloyd a little bit, where he was a second-round pick and he didn't really get a chance to start for a few years, and then once he did start, he showed he could be very efficient. Of course, Lloyd improved a lot from his first few years, but yeah, Freeman's definitely an interesting.
God, you can't compliment a single person without tying it back to the Wizards somehow.
Of course not. Obviously, you're still new to these podcasts, but that's how this goes.
Anyway, let's move on from the Rockets. Thug is on the KWO.
Oh boy. Yeah. So once again, I think, who has signed someone to a huge, ridiculous contract. This time it's Tyree with making $68 million by the time he's 44.
That is just hilarious how bad it is.
God, look at that thing.
Yeah, this person has gotten every single max contract possible. It's good for a weird kind of social experiment kind of way, but probably terrible way to run a team. Owen Adams, I think, is going to have to do a lot this year for this team because like Vince Orozco and even Pinnabel, those guys went down in TC. This team, Mark Flora is a good player. I'm not necessarily sure. I mean, I wouldn't throw a max on him, I don't think, in free agency per se. But yeah, this team kind of just confuses me. Tyree is now B+. I don't think any help in the world is going to help him get to 20 points a game this year. So it'll be interesting to see what happens to this team. Chuck Lamberson is still mediocre as always. I don't really like this team. Owen Adams is probably the only highlight of this team for me.
They've made the playoffs for like 2 or 3 years running. You think that's going to end?
Yeah, I definitely think it's going to end this year.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I know how bad the West is, but I still think they're going to not make it this year.
I think the training camp was a killer. If Tyree can't score around 20 points per game, this team can't score. Daubergas is okay, but Florida is not a good enough scorer, and the big men don't score. So it's just a bad situation. Again, with horrible training camp, it's going to affect their playoff chances.
Yeah, I don't really like this team much at all. I mean, I think that Chuck Lamberson's probably actually going to start at power forward, which is just a terrible situation to be in. And Tyree's just terrible at this point. I mean, those ratings, like, I don't know. Normally, I can ignore ratings to a degree, but I mean, that's just like he looks like Josh Finley. You know, that's bad. I had to bring in a Wizards player, so there you go.
I can't wait to see how long he plays. Like how many years he's going to play with that contract.
Yeah.
But at least Mike Murphy looks okay. He'd probably be the starting shooting guard by next season.
He should be the starting shooting guard this season, but he'll never start until Tyree retires. So
I'd start Cooperman, but whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely wouldn't start Tyree Robinson at this point. I mean, he's just absolute.
How can you justify starting Tyree at this point? I mean, you just can't.
Tenure? I don't know. Maybe they're a unionized team. I don't know, but it's just terrible.
Unionized.
Oh,
he's making He's making $39 million. I guess that's a justification, but still, that's just awful.
I hope he doesn't retire. I hope he stays for that entire contract.
That'd be hilarious. I think the last 3 years they're making more than an entire cap. So
yeah,
that's pretty cool. I don't think that's ever happened. Anyway, let's move on to the Spurs, and this is me. And I mean, I'm looking at the Spurs. I don't really think there's a whole lot to say.
Nets.
Yeah, it is kind of like the Nets of the West. Josh said he was going to make a more concerted effort to be a GM, like be a good GM this year, and he's been shopping Dick Johnson and Richard DeCesare, but obviously he hasn't had any success. And Luka Comrie has kind of like stagnated a little bit. He's like the above average point guard for right now, but he hasn't become like a good starter yet. And like they have no small forward. They have their big men just don't work together. He had Brad Huddleston, and I think Huddleston's going to be a good player. He had an okay training camp, but I really like him for the future. But he's not going to make an impact on this team because, as long as Dick Johnson and Richard are there, then there's no place for him. And on paper, this team is a playoff team, but they just don't click together. And Josh has to blow that up. It's just not going to work. And like Wiggins, his final decent seasons are going to waste here. He should have been traded like 2 or 3 years ago, probably. But I mean, there's not really a lot more to say. The Spurs are just a pretty bad team. Roscoe Brown got the max. He wasn't worth that. He's not that good of a player, really. He went down to training camp, I think, and inside. So it's just a bad situation. I would not envy Josh right now with the Spurs.
Yeah, I have nothing to add. It's like you said, they're like the new Nets of the West. They have almost the same team they did last year. Like you said, Huddleston, he's certainly got upside, and I don't know. I kind of like Roscoe Brown. I'm a bit more of a fan of him than you are. I think he went up and outside actually, so he's probably more of a
he did not go up and outside. He went down inside and up and handling.
Oh, well, either way, I don't know. I think he's still got some upside, but their small forward situation is like non-existent. Like Andrew Wiggins could be starting a small forward for them.
He should be probably. I don't know why he isn't.
I would certainly start him ahead of Andrew Moore, who just is like not good.
Or Tom Scott, or whoever he's going to play.
Yeah.
All right, Utah, and that is Hodgkin.
Already? Jeez.
I feel. Wait, did Doug talk about the Spurs?
I talked about the T-Wolves.
T-Wolves, yeah.
If I talk about the Spurs, I have nothing to add to the Spurs.
Yeah. I don't really much to say about the Spurs.
All right.
Rocca's master plan of free agency planning for years managed to get him Charles Matthews. So obviously that paid off huge for him.
Yeah, not 3 free agents, not 4 free agents.
Yes, not but 1 actually.
Yeah, not even 1.
Yeah. I mean, this team they pretty much are identical to the team they had last year in players. Obviously, the TC has changed things around a bit. George Blazer looks like he can score a lot, and he better because that's what he's there to do. He's not there to be a stopper on defense. Gary Hamilton once again will outplay his ratings like on as far as actual point guarding goes. That's not a word. I just made it up. I mean, they have four starters I like with Bill Luck, who's very consistent, and Bill Ross and Gary Hamilton. And I think obviously if Blazer can play up to his offensive ratings, he'll be a very good player. But they still don't have a power forward. Steve Harris is a good backup, although he seems to be taking a pretty steep decline. I think Charles Matthews is an all right backup, I guess. But I mean, this team, whatever I said about them last year, it's just about the same this year, unless George Blazer like explodes on offense. And even if he does, I don't know. Something about this team just doesn't sit well with me.
Yeah, I agree. I think this team needs to. I think the best thing Rocca can do with this team is blow this team up, and at least trade one of either Bill Ross or Hamilton, and try to just get some depth, somewhere on this team. It's just like Hodge said, it's 4, it's 4 good starters and then not very much else. And I think that's what's really hurting them in the last couple of years, because when one of those guys don't have a good game, they tend to always lose.
Yeah. I think I would probably look into maybe trading George Blazer before he even plays a game.
That's never going to happen. That's never going to happen.
Well, yeah, because he went to Illinois too, so it's kind of hard for him to get rid of him.
I offered Rocca a first for Steve Harris this offseason. He just flat out ignored me. So apparently, he's not too interested in.
Oh, I would definitely take a first for Steve Harris.
Yeah.
But I mean, I would definitely, I think either one of Bill Ross, Blazer, or Hamilton. I would definitely look into. Well, I probably wouldn't trade Hamilton because he doesn't have very good depth at point guard. But I think you could certainly trade a guy like Bill Ross and then get a power forward and a small forward that are good to start, and then sort of balance out his team a bit more, because now it's sort of top heavy and then it drops a lot. Also, right. Roman Roberts is the worst handling wing I've ever seen in my life. Like F+. I didn't even know you could get that low handling other than Bob McCoy at a small forward.
I think the underrated part about what you guys haven't mentioned is Hamilton going up to A outside in training camp, because last time he was A outside, he won MVP with the Rockets.
I remember that.
He's just a different player with A outside. And I think that's a huge factor for their season this year, obviously. If he scores over 30 points a game like he did in that MVP season, then Utah suddenly becomes a dangerous team, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. They do need a power forward, but Bill Ross had a good training camp. Blazer had a great training camp. Renee Sluss had a great training camp. The Steve Harris did bad, but still, their main guys had really good training camps. So, and even Gary Lopez had a huge training camp. So they had a really good training camp, and it's just I think it'll lead to a few more wins, probably like a top 5 or 6 seed instead of getting 7 or 8 like we usually do.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know. I'm just not as high. Yeah, I'm just not quite as high on Utah as.
I just love Gary Hamilton with the outside. That's my thing.
I just hate Gary Hamilton all the time.
Yeah,
so
we know that.
Right, which is why I didn't want to say anything. I was going to stay quiet, and then you had to.
Tyler, you can talk about Memphis, because that's who we're on now, and you're up.
All right. So with the Memphis Grizzlies, they did a lot this offseason, including nothing. So the Memphis team of last season, I'm fairly certain they did well.
They made the Western Conference Finals.
Yeah, that. But But Jim Castanon, I'm a big fan of. A lot of people, he's one of those players a lot of people like, a lot of people don't. But I personally, I really enjoy watching him play on paper. But he's what they need right now. He's that 20.9 assist, very low turnover. He's that kind of guy. Larry Riley, is a scorer. And I think the way he and Wills and Castanon mesh together, I think that's very good with Tane Sun scoring off the bench. And then their big man situation is just what, I don't know, I guess, because, you have Josh Tanner and Rob Abbott. And Josh Tanner is a great rebounder. I mean, he 11 his rookie season and then 12 last season. So, he'll probably get 13 this year. So, but no offense, which is fine. And then Ryan Brunn, who's like the complete opposite, because he's a scorer type with no defense, like literally whatsoever, no defense at all. I just don't see the direction this team's going, because, I mean, you have Castanon, who's 28, Wills, who's 33, Tane Sun's 35, Brunn's 33, but then you have Tanner, who's 21, Riley, who's 24. They only have their picks for the future. It seems like they're trying that whole let's maybe win now but save some assets for later kind of thing, which I'm never a fan of. I think you need to either, if you're not going to be able to win
one
now,
way or the other.
Yeah, just pick one way or the other.
He's been trying to trade John Wills and Ryan Brunn for a while now.
Yeah. And Tane Sun, obviously, too.
Well, I mean, I offered him a first for Tane Sun, and he ignored that.
Well, you screwed him over on that trade, though.
How did I screw him over?
He IM'd me saying he had a deal done, and then you went and traded your other first for someone else. I forget who. And then he tried to trade him to Baldwin, and Baldwin said he didn't want him. So
wait, hold on. This literally never happened.
It did happen. He IM'd me saying that he had a done deal with you.
It was all a dream.
I never traded a first this offseason.
You were going to, or something. I don't know.
We'll talk.
No, it was the Magic trade, wasn't it?
None of the pieces I traded in the Magic trade affected the trade I had offered him.
I don't know. I'm just telling you that he said he had a deal done with you, and then all of a sudden he didn't, and then he went to Baldwin, and then Baldwin said no, and then he went back to you, and now he's ignoring you or something. I don't know. I'm just telling you what I know.
All right. Fuck.
Okay.
I agree. Cool.
I think this TC was actually like really kind of rough on the Grizzlies, because John Wills dropping in defense is going to hurt a lot. Yeah. And Ryan Brunn also, that kind of weakens what was a pretty solid, pair of forwards on defense. And also Wills dropped the rebounding, which hurts even more because that was such a huge part of their outside offense working so well, is that he was bringing in, more rebounds than a typical small forward, whereas now he'll probably just be more of just a shooter that doesn't bring a lot of boards. But on the other hand, Tommy Madsden, he looks like he had a good TC. Rob Abbott actually looks like he can at least be a defender, rebounder off the bench and not be the pathetic whatever he was being last year. So it was kind of a really mixed year, but I think the end result is that Memphis will probably be sort of similar to how they were last year, but I think they might be worse because I don't know. I feel like the Brunn and Wills TCs will be a very big changer to how they work.
I think complacency plus the bad training camp has let them fall behind other teams like the Kings and the Mavs and maybe the Rockets potentially. I think they've fallen behind all those teams. They're still a playoff team for sure as constructed, but I don't think they're a real contender anymore.
Yeah, this team's not going anywhere unless he actually is able to do something. I think his best bet is just trading Wills and Brunn and trying to get some assets and then try to catch the primes of someone like Josh Tanner.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But it's not going to be winning this year. They're not going to win anything this year, I don't think.
No.
All right, so we're on to the last division, the Pacific, and that is Thug is up first with the Warriors.
Oh boy.
Good old Warriors.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this team is. I mean, I don't know what you can say about this team. I mean, in terms of the trades they made and the contracts that they've given out, just these numbers are just astounding to see. Floyd Cuervas with that contract and Donald. I literally have no idea who Donald Montgomery is until I looked at.
I barely do.
Yeah, it's just It's a very strange team. I mean, he's probably better off just. I can't even think of a strategy for Donor at this point. Maybe someone will take McAvoy and Sungyu for a couple firsts, maybe. But that's really all he can do, and maybe he can hope that Sam Legg somehow wakes up from his terrible seasons. Yeah, this team, not only are they going to be terrible this year, they're going to be terrible for the next 3 years, and anyone with kind of a brain can see that, which is why I think that sometimes you have to value people's future first when you look at their cap situation, because I would eat my hat if this team did anything in the next 3 seasons.
I would agree with that.
Just one thing. The only interesting I see about them is Curran Iverson right now. I just want to see how high he can get on the points total. That's about it for them. I don't really care about anything else.
I think Curran Iverson might be one of the worst starters in the league at this point. I just think he's so bad.
Oh, he's a horrible handler, but he's a great scorer at least still.
Yeah.
Well, not great,
is
but
he?
He's a good scorer.
In the game, he's under Keith Thornburg and Cyan Mung.
Well, that's because the game loves handling.
Yeah.
Okay, but John Albie's higher than a lot of people. I'm just saying, Curran averaged 18 points on 44% shooting last year, and he's averaging. Is it 18 on 44 when he was like the number 2 option?
I think the 4 rebounds is what makes me sort of.
Yeah, he's a horrible player beyond that.
4 rebounds a game and more turnovers than assists.
Yeah.
I just want to see. I'm talking about a historical perspective. Yeah. I don't want to see how I can get on the all-time scoring list. He's like the 4th right now.
I know.
That's like the only way he's getting fans into these games right now. Just watch Curran Iverson pass people on the historical ratings.
I think Tommy.
I feel bad for Pete Harris too. It's kind of like he's just stuck there, and he's like a pretty consistent, like solid player, but he's just.
Pete Harris is where he belongs on that team.
I like Pete Harris.
McAvoy will probably retire with him this year too.
I'm surprised McAvoy didn't try to retire the last 3 seasons with him.
I would have retired as soon as I got told I was being sent to a donor team.
Anyway, all right, so I'm up with this is fitting because this is the team I picked to win the title.
Yeah.
The Clippers. I'm probably overrating them a little bit, but I just love them. I love Scott Duncan. There's no bigger Scott Duncan fan than me in the league, and that's obvious by now.
Really?
I don't. No, it's not. He went up to A outside, which is a huge deal because A outside is pretty significant. That usually means they're going to shoot at least like 40% from 3 and 80% from the free throw line.
Yeah.
And he went down in rebounding, which is going to hurt the triple doubles a little bit. But Tony Ross continued to go up. He went down in rebounding too, which is, I mean, when you factor that with Duncan, it's not a good thing because their big men can't rebound, so they need.
And neither can Adrian Cole.
Yeah, so those two need to rebound. So them going down is an issue I overlooked until now. But Tony Ross and Scott Duncan are just probably, beyond Oklahoma City, probably the best 1-2 combo in the league. I can't think of a better one because Ross is just an elite player, and Scott Duncan's obviously Scott Duncan, and Adrian Cole is the best number 3 player in the league, probably other than Kenneth Marshall. Which is why I probably should have picked Oklahoma City because they're better than the Clippers at everything. But Max Conyers, I still like him as a big man defender at least. And Tony Ellis, I'm not huge on Tony Ellis. I don't know. I'm regretting picking them now that I'm talking about.
Yeah, not even actually looked at their roster for more than 3 seconds. It's
now that you've realized that it's not just Duncan and Ross.
Yeah.
And they went down in TC.
Maybe if they make that trade for Jay Wire they were talking about, then maybe the Clippers will win it then. But until then, they're probably still a little too flawed. Their big men are too weak, and the Duncan and Ross are great, but they're not going to carry them to a title.
Yeah, I like Ron Fuentes though. He's a good backup.
Yeah, I picked him for 6th man of the year. I like him a lot.
I've liked him for a while now, but yeah, as you said, I mean, Tony Ellis and Tim Craig and Aldo Reimer they're not a good group of guys. And I'm not even really a huge Max Conyers guy, but I mean, I guess he's good. I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of his, but you know.
I like Max Conyers. I think he's good for what he does.
Yeah, he's a good defender, and he can shoot a little bit, which is always a decent thing to have.
This team is going to live and die by just how much of the offense can just go through those 3 guys, and they can just pass it to each other and never let anyone else see the ball. Basically, if they can do that, they're fine.
I'm really worried about their rebounding low because Conyers doesn't do it very well. Ellis is okay at it. I mean, yeah, I think they need to have a big man who can rebound. And
Yeah.
like they need like a Josh Tanner.
Yeah, I mean, you said
I don't think
if
any
they
of their
had
big men had. Yeah.
I was just gonna say, you said if they added Jay Wire, and I don't see how that would help whatsoever
Yeah.
because they still can't rebound.
It's not a great rebounder either. I know.
Tony Allen's had more than 10 rebounds a game last year.
Yeah, but
He did.
That's kind of like out of necessity. It feels like more than being a good rebounder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But-
And he also shot 40% last year.
I think they can get a top 4 seed potentially because if they stay healthy, because Duncan and Ross are just going to have such big regular seasons that it's going to lead to wins.
Right.
But I don't think it'll translate to the playoffs. Enough it won't.
Yeah.
All right, Haj, you get to talk about the Lakers, the team that lost Matt Yoder this offseason.
Yes. Why would that even happen? I don't understand how you can let someone that you traded so much to get him on the team to start with, because I'm pretty sure they traded like 4 firsts or.
It was something ridiculous.
Yeah, they traded a lot to get Matt Yoder, and to let him walk away for free, you only got 1 season out of him where your season was pretty awful anyways. I mean, that's one of the worst off-season blunders I've ever seen.
He was going for Pickens and Marino, too. You must have just thought...
Yeah, but at least put a bid in so you can match if someone goes on Yoder. I mean, you can't let Matt Yoder walk away for free. I mean, as much as GBB is apparently overvaluing him, he's still, like, an incredible player that you can get a lot of assets for. But anyways, as for guys that actually are on his team, Dick Marcus is a player on this team. He's developed into a pretty solid center. He's a good rebounder. I like his handling for a big man. I don't know. Some people don't care about that as much, but I know that Tyler is like me is a fan of big men that can handle.
I'm with you.
Yeah, there you go.
Got your back.
And Aaron Perkins actually he looks very promising. He must have had a good TC because I don't remember being very excited about seeing him last year, but this year he looks like he's got a lot of upside. He's got a lot of young guys, some of them more promising than others.
Yeah, the Fresh Prince doesn't look too great.
Yeah, the Fresh Prince looks like a little stale, but I'm thinking rim shot there.
Looks a little bit more like a Carlton.
Yes. And Kevin Land, actually, he had a pretty good offseason. But for this year, they're probably going to be very, very low. I mean, Lance Burton is starting and is a go-to guy, so I really don't need to add anything to that at this point.
He doesn't have his first.
Right, because he traded that for Yoder. Like that's a real
Which is
thing.
why I don't know. It's almost unforgivable to just let Yoder walk away for nothing.
I think he just forgot.
I found that trade. It was Leg, Frazier, and 4 firsts for Yoder and the Pacers first.
Yeah.
So there's that.
I'm intrigued to see Warren Merchant get a full season starting because he's
I love
getting all
Warren
better.
Merchant.
So I want to see how he does. He had a good training camp.
Yeah, I tried hard to get him.
And I also think Kevin Land is going to be like a future superstar because I feel he's had 2 huge training camps. He went from B to A- defense this year, so I really like him for the future. But you guys are right. You letting Yoder go without even even bidding on him. I think he just forgot, like Doug said, and it's just a bad situation. That's set him back for a while. Yoder wasn't even a good fit on this team, even if he had him, because he's surrounded by nothing but young players. But at least he could have traded Yoder for something.
Right.
Yeah.
If he kept him.
Like GBB is trying to do right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, GBB is about to get some free draft picks. Like no matter how much you end up trading Yoder for,
It's great.
It's a good situation for anyone but Karachi.
All right, Tyler. I think this is your last team. Yeah, talk about the Suns.
Oh, I got to give it my all then.
Yeah.
And this is a good team to do it on because they've changed so much recently. I'm just kidding, Jerry. I know you're listening. I just wanted to give you a hard time with your goatee, your beautiful goatee. I liked the Suns last year, and they let me down, so I'm being very skeptical of this right now.
Did they really let you down though? They increased by like 20 wins. That's pretty good.
Yeah, but I wanted more.
Did they really? Wow.
Yeah, they were the worst team in the league the year before, and then they almost made the playoffs last year. Pretty good increase.
Yeah.
All right, fine. They let me down. They let me down to my standards. I set higher standards. Have you seen my team?
All right.
Dale Smith is good. I think we can all agree on that, except for maybe the people who don't agree.
Maybe.
I feel weirded out because, he's always been someone that people have kind of had high regards to, but he's one of the most streaky players. He was a 19-9 player just 2 seasons ago with the Magic, and then last season he was a 22-8 player. I understand
he played some shooting guards, so I had to
Did
lower
he?
the assist. Yeah.
All right, well, see, that makes a little bit more sense then. But, Dale Smith and then Kenneth Nishida, who I just love. I love the shit out of Kenneth Nishida. I think he had a pretty big TC, right?
Up in rebounding.
Up in rebounding, yeah. So hopefully that'll help because his rebounding wasn't that good last year. But I think he has either a real future in this league or he's the next Dan Ty. So we'll see. But and then Andre Hood. I don't. Lester Nunnally, I don't know who's starting for this team right now. They don't look as good to me as they did last year, and I don't think much has changed, so I'm not really sure why. But I'm looking at this team now, and I'm just not seeing a lot of potential there. I mean, Nishida and Hood isn't a terrible 1-2 combo. I don't really like Andre Hood, but he just kind of reminds me of Jay Hood, who really let me down, so that's probably why there. But, I don't know. I mean, is Lester Nunnally probably starting at small forward?
I don't know. That's a messy situation.
Yeah. And then you're trying to decide between Townsend and Sandin at shooting guard?
Maybe Townsend at small forward. I don't know.
Yeah,
he's too short to play small forward.
6'5". I'd play a 6'5" guy there. I wouldn't have a problem with it.
Right.
That's just me.
Jerry's a great GM. I'm sure he'll be able to figure it out. But right now, it's kind of messy.
The one thing Jerry has to do after training camp is he has to find a way to get Leonard Yarbrough minutes because Yarbrough's at 2 big training camps now. He went up from B handling and B defense to B plus handling and A- defense. He's clearly ready to get some minutes. He might even be ready to start, but he's behind 2 really good point guards. So Jerry's got to maybe even trade Dale Smith to improve elsewhere because Yarbrough is ready to play.
I think you could trade Dale Smith for quite a bit and then trade Gerald Dunn for at least a first.
So, yeah, you just got to make room for Yarbrough because Yarbrough's his team's future at point guard. Him and Nishida are going to be a great combo going forward.
Yeah, I really like Yarbrough as well. I mean, Dale Smith is one of my favorite players, and I remember when I did that the trade values with Mofo, and I put him really high, and Mofo killed me for it. But we saw how important he was on the Magic, and when he left, that team basically just fell apart. So I think Dale Smith is really good, and hopefully if he trades him, he gets what he deserves for Dale Smith.
Yeah, he's still in his prime, too. He went up in defense in training camp with Dale Smith. So if you're listening to this, Dale Smith is a must-buy. Or, whatever. Like
he's very steady, consistent player. He's only 30 still, so he could probably play another 3 or 4 years at this level. And if he's sometimes they get lucky and players can play longer than that, obviously. But I think, I don't know, I don't like Saul Sandin's offseason. It looks like he looks worse. I think his outside went down.
No, he didn't do anything.
Yeah. I'm starting to think he's just not really a good starter as much as he can score, but I mean, he's a good backup. But
kind of looks like a Buteau.
Yeah, he looks like
a J.R. Smith, maybe.
J.R. Smith, Buteau type of guy. But, I mean, like was said, the small forward situation is just non-existent almost. I mean, he has small forwards that they do exist, but I don't know if any of them are guys you want to start. I know last year he was starting Dunn and Smith at one point, and that worked, I guess. Plus, it allowed Yarbrough to actually play. But, I agree with everybody. Dale Smith, you can get a lot for him, and he should probably trade him out to a team that's looking for a very, very good point guard.
All right, 3 teams left, and this is Thug's last team, the Portland Trailblazers. This is probably the busiest offseason of any team. Thug, what do you have to say?
I mean, I think JB is, he did a great job of grabbing all those draft picks. Definitely, I'm upset I missed out on Cogburn, especially if he goes up at center apparently. So that's definitely a great draft pick. Michael Brooks was someone else I thought about drafting. Not Brooks. Steven Perez. Yeah, that's somebody else I thought about drafting. So I'm glad to see that JB continues to be a great drafter. And Yeah, this is obviously, just a season to kind of test out the young guys, see how they did. Although I guess the last time JB won the championship, it was with a very young team. But I would be shocked if this team could actually make any kind of noise like that. But obviously looks like all of the lottery picks in this next year's draft. so hopefully he'll be able to hit some stars out of picks 1 through 10. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely a very bright future for this team. This year is just about getting the minutes and getting whatever he can for it. Those guys are helping him win too much. Although we saw last year that the more he tries to lose, he just makes it the playoffs, apparently.
Yeah. I think Isaac Yardley had a really good TC.
He did.
Oh,
He had
absolutely.
Way better than before. And I think him and David Griffin are going to be bad for losing because they're both pretty good already. So that's not going to help them lose too much. But it helps that everyone around them is pretty mediocre to poor.
No bird years on Yardley, just FYI for everyone out there.
Yeah, if JB wins, if he wins this year, then who cares? Because he's got like 7 other lotto picks. I mean, come on.
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
I mean, don't be picky, JB. Don't try to get like 8. You're just getting greedy there.
Yeah, I see at least like 5 of those picks are probably locks to be lotto picks, or 6 even if Cleveland's
I see 5 picks are going to be definitely bottom 3 picks.
Wow. Well, there's a lot, considering how many teams are top 3 in the East, I'm amazed you could find 5 that were in the bottom there.
And especially how many are winning the East.
Oh, well, yeah.
Yes. All right. Now the Sacramento Kings. Now I got this one.
All right.
Great.
Well, what, Tyler? You got a problem with me talking about your team?
No. No, sir.
Yes, sir.
What the hell?
I'm sorry to have upset you, sir.
Yeah, come on. Well, first of all, I think Brian Freeman is on the decline. I'm not a huge Brian Freeman fan anymore because last year in the playoffs he really disappointed me. He averaged like 12 and 9, and he shot like 35%, if I remember correctly.
That's
awful. He went down to defense in training camp, so I think he's seen his better days. I think he's still going to be a good starter, but he's seen his better days. And beyond that, obviously this team is loaded at that small forward, shooting guard, point guard. Brake and Pierre together, that's like a dream combo almost, with how good offensively they are. And if you put Beck by it, Beck proved last year that he is an all-star caliber starting point guard. So that's great. That's just an elite combo right there. That's going to lead the Kings to a lot of wins. That's going to challenge. I think they're going to challenge Oklahoma City in the Pacific. I think they're that good. I think I could easily see them winning 55 games if they get a power forward, because that's the one issue I have with them. Dustin Sanders is the projected starter there, and he's okay, but he reminds me of like Edgar Holford starting on the Pacers. He's a great backup, but I just do not like him as a starter. He's got plenty of chances starting, and he's just always fails in his situations. And I feel like if the Kings had a power forward, just like if the Pacers had a small forward, they would win the conference. And until that happens, I feel like the Kings are going to be held back a little bit. And I said they could win 55 games, and they can because Pierre Lewis is that good. He can carry this team as far as possible, but I think they're a little too flawed to win the West, even though they'll be right there at the top.
Well, I really love the Kings, like, just as much as I did last year, maybe more. Obviously, Lewis, Brake, and Beck is a great trio. I'm not as pessimistic about Brian Freeman as you are. I think he's still going to be very good. And I would probably start Lester Amato and then use Sanders as a backup, since he can also back up at small forward where they're a little weaker on the depth. Then he only really needs to find some sort of a guard backup other than Frank Lloyd, who can't play shooting guard. But I'd agree. I think they're certainly one of the better teams. And I mean, after looking through basically every other team in the West, they might be my team the most likely to be able to knock off Oklahoma City. I'd say they're probably one of the few teams that really have a shot to do that.
Yeah. The only thing I'll say about this team is I like the trade that he made with JB for those guys. It really rounds out that team. I wish he traded his 2034 first instead of his 2035 first, just because I think this team has a 2-year window and he probably would want his first back in 2035.
Yeah, they are a little bit older, but yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, they're Brake and Lewis are getting a little long in the tooth at 32.
Pierre's still going to be around in 3 years, so I don't think he'll retire. You got 3 years left on his contract.
Same with Brake.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's more the decline to
But
sort of like.
Yeah, I
Break
was
is
talking more
fine.
about the decline. They're
Yeah,
going to
but
retire.
Pierre doesn't decline, but Break is on the decline a little bit.
You act as if in 3 years Break is going to look like Tyree does right now. I don't think it's going to be that bad. All right.
No, I don't think so either.
No, but
What else do you have to add about your team, Tyler?
Just I don't hate Dustin Sanders as much as you do. His defense goes up at power forward, and he's always to me been better at power forward than he has small forward. I know everyone loves to play him at small forward. I mean, hell, I play him at small forward, but he's a pretty good power forward. And I think him and Freeman, Sanders does a lot of things. He scores decently. When he doesn't have to take too many shots. He's a better rebounder when he's a power forward. I like his handling. His steals aren't bad, especially for a big man. So I really think I'll be okay with him there. I will continue to look for upgrades. I might start Ernest Fowler, so we'll see. I'm kidding. I'm not going to do that. But I tried to find a combination, someone else that I could put with Break to make it work this year, and I just decided Pierre. Pierre and Beck seemed like a pretty good combination there. So
yeah, and I forgot about it. I think actually Leighton's he's still a very good backup to have, and he's the kind of guy where he's a little shorter than I would usually like in a shooting guard, but off the bench, I mean, he provides a lot of offense still, and he's still very efficient. And Wayne Selden is also obviously a very good pickup to have. So I completely forgot about that trade for some stupid reason. But so that pretty much resolved my main issues with the Kings.
Yeah,
that adds good depth at the guards and the wings, but that wasn't as good before.
All right, so
now we are left.
Hold on 1 second. I'm taking a podcast timeout for this little. I have to leave. My girlfriend got off work early, and her car got totaled yesterday, so I have to pick her up. But I will leave my Skype on. If you guys just want to pretend just don't even reference me. Just pretend I'm here.
All right, we just got one team. Yeah, we just got one team left to do anyway.
Yeah,
so.
just one last team in the outro. But I'll leave my Skype on, so it'll continue to record, and I'll get it edited when I get home. So.
All right.
I'll see you guys later.
And Haj, I see you. Haj, you are up with the Oklahoma City Thunder. Haj.
Well, I want to hear what Tyler has to say about the first. The Thunder. This was not their greatest DC in the world. I mean, obviously they still look amazing, and I'm sure Kenneth Marshall is he went to B+ defense, but I'm sure he's still going to be a very good defender.
He's A- at center, by the way.
Yeah, I could see maybe I don't know if Mars is the same. Maybe I could just switch them around. But I remember you mentioned it in the TC about their bench pieces getting a little weaker, which is a factor. Like Marcus Fleming becoming even more useless on defense. Jerry Smoot not being an A defender. I mean, Dave Kaufman still looks about the same as he did last year. I mean, PJC basically had a nothing to terrible TC. The only reason he signed him is because he wanted him 17 seasons ago or whatever. But, I still think this team is going to win a ton of games, as Baldwin teams do. James Blackman astonishes me that he still looks great.
He went up again, too. He went up in handling and rebounding this training camp.
Oh, yeah? Wow. He's it's bionics, because we're in 2033, so he's probably part machine now. David O'Neal is still an amazing point guard, and even with some drops elsewhere, that alone makes him a contender. But I think the gap is a lot smaller between them compared to how they were to the rest of the league last year to this year, where I feel like they're much more beatable than they were last season.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think Fleming went down in defense. Not that he was ever a great defender, but still, I mean, just all these things add up. Marshall, I think, also went down in defense, as you guys mentioned. I mean, I think it's still, as long as you got David O'Neal and Chris Willis at the peak of their powers, I think they're going to be a really great team. But the supporting cast does seem a little bit weaker, and definitely had, aside from James Blackman Jr., who has been hitting the deer antler spray, probably. I'm not necessarily sure what else that could possibly be a reason for such a good TC at age 35. I think this team will still be number one in the West. This team will probably still win 55 to 60 games, but they're going to be a little bit weaker in the playoffs for sure.
So you guys don't think they're going to become the first team ever to three-peat in EBL history?
It's going to be very tough, and it's going to be just riding Chris Willis and David O'Neill.
It's going to be a lot harder than last year's run to the finals.
Yeah, last year's team was one of the best of all time, and O'Neill had a bad training camp too, which is an underrated element to them, to their three-peat.
Yeah.
But Chris Willis is still the best small forward in the league, maybe the best player in the league. Last year he was so good. I think they're the favorites still, but it's just going to be really, really hard because there's a lot of good teams, especially in the East. Like even the Bulls last year gave them a decent series in the finals, and they were the 8th seed.
Yeah.
I think I would probably pick them to win to three-peat right now, but they're this. I mean, they have an old team. This is it for this core. I think this is the last year until a lot of players retire. They all came back somehow. Like they all really wanted to three-peat. Like it's like the game actually programmed that. But
yeah,
this is it. This is the last run. If he can three-peat with this team, then that's an amazing run with the Thunder. And they're still going to be good after that. It's still going to O'Neal and Willis and probably Marshall. But it's going to take a lot of work to win after this season. So if he can win this year, then hats off to him. That's an amazing run with this score.
They all took their cues from Henry Luna. They all saw he was coming back, and everybody else decided one more round.
Yeah, he's the ringleader.
One more ring for Henry is required. One for the other finger.
I think that finishes it up. You guys have any final thoughts?
Well, we could predict. Oh yeah, Tyler, you want to chime in? Yeah, I think the Wizards are great. That's what Tyler sounds like. I don't know if you guys knew that. I guess
you sound like Mrs. Doubtfire.
Yes, and you sound like a robot apparently from before. I guess for finals predictions, we can make our conference/finals predictions.
Just quickly, I guess.
Quickly. In the East, I guess I would say the Pacers. I think they'll make a run to the East Finals this year, and they'll probably be against the Knicks. I guess I don't know. But
I'll take the Pacers and the Wizards in the East. I think, and I will take the Pacers to win the East still. That's my pick.
I don't want to pick my own team. That's why I was. But and in the West, I mean, I would have to say Oklahoma City will probably still win the West, but I think the Kings will actually. I think they'll be the top challenger this year in the West, especially after that trade having some underrated depth guys.
I'll take Oklahoma City and Houston as a sleeper because I think Doug's going to make a big move. So Houston, Oklahoma City, and Houston, and Oklahoma City wins the West again.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with my team in the Midwest. I think I'm gonna pick Tyler over Baldwin in the Pacific. In the Central, I'll say the Pacers again, and I'll take Hodges' team. I'll take Wizards in the Atlantic, and then the finals I think will be Rockets over Wizards in 5.
The dream matchup that everybody wants.
Exactly.
All right, I think we can end it now, right?
Yeah. So Tyler, if you want to sign us off, you can just chime in, right? Yep. We'll just wait.
Oh, I hope he leaves that part in so everyone understands this.
Yeah.
All right. This is going way too long. We got to end it.
Yeah.
All right. Take it easy, guys.
Yeah.